If aliens are listening out there, then please beam messages into my head.
This is TalkSport. We are the two Mikes, and I'm delighted to say it's time to say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
And a very good morning to you, Mike. And it is the end of international football. I'm glad that you raised that at the start of the show.
Well, you say that, but has it not been dying on its backside for years and years and years?
Well, that's true, yeah, but this has just given it a power boost into oblivion. And I'm amazed the cry hasn't gone up before this show of ours, because it's obvious to anybody who immerses themselves in the business of football, as we do, that for international football it's gone. 16 groups of 3 teams.
Yeah.
Oh, how's that going to work?
Well, how does it not? I don't understand how it makes it any more complicated than it was before.
16 groups of 3 teams.
Instead of having what you would have, which was what, like loads and loads of groups of 4 teams, you've now got 16 groups of 3 teams.
Does that mean you're going to have 16 locations, by the way, to play these 16
Not necessarily.
groups in?
Not necessarily.
You're going to need at least 12, aren't you?
Yeah, you're probably going to need 12, yeah.
Okay, how many countries have got 12 decent football stadiums after England?
That's why they're doing it in 2026. They're going to do it. Well, no, when you say none after England, that's probably not true. You've got certainly United States of America, you've got Germany, you've got probably Spain, China will probably be involved in it.
Hang on, this is all about inclusion.
This is like 9 years away.
No, this is all about inclusion.
Yeah.
So this means that the next, the first World Cup in 2026 will be in a country that's never had it before.
It'll be in the US. Well, in fact, North America is what everybody seems to think it will be.
No, it'll be in a country that's never had it before.
No, it won't. It'll be in America.
Okay.
Trust me.
Well, if it's going to be in North America, they'll probably give it to something like Greenland or something like that, because they want to be inclusive. This is the whole idea. So that means...
No, they won't give it to Greenland.
That means we'll go and build 12 new stadia at the cost of about £1 billion each.
Incorrect.
Which will never be used again.
True. No, that's not true. They've got plenty of football stadiums in America. They play MLS League football in all sorts of stadiums that have got enough capacity, trust me.
I bet they'll make it Canada to be inclusive.
They can put Canada in there as well. They've got a team in Toronto. They've got teams in Canada that play
but
football.
they haven't got 12 great stadia in Canada.
They don't need 12 in Canada. They can have 12 over the course of America and Canada.
Oh, I see. You're saying it's going to be 2 or 3 countries now all combining together.
I don't see what the big fuss is about. I don't know what the fuss is about. I mean, it's the end anyway. I mean, England, the last 2 World Cups that England have been at have been a complete and utter unmitigated disaster.
So 16 groups of 3.
So quite frankly, if you're an England fan, then you should be praising this, because it might G them up. It might make a difference to the World Cup approach that England take.
It takes everything down in standards. It doesn't take them up. It takes them down.
Well, because you can't go any further down.
Rubbish. You haven't got to try. I mean, by the way, if 48 teams are going to be in the final. So if
you do know what happened in 2014, don't you?
I know exactly what happened.
England went to Brazil, right?
Yeah.
They played 3 games.
Yeah.
They didn't win any of them.
Can I just finish, please? If
it was a shambles. How much worse could it be?
If there's 48 teams in the final itself,
yes.
So England are in a qualifying group, say just of 4 to get to the finals. Okay,
maybe.
So
they haven't explained what the qualifying is going to be like.
So hang on. So we've got 48 teams who arrive there eventually. They're all in groups of 4. So that's 4 40s is 160.
No, they're not in groups
4
of 4.
8 to 32. That's 172.
How many teams currently qualify for the World Cup?
At the moment, 32.
No, I'm talking about the ones who are in the qualifying groups. This is what the number you're going to give me.
But
right?
we've got 5 already in our qualifying group.
Yeah, England are in a group of 6.
A group of 6.
And how many groups of 6 are there?
I don't know, but I'm rowing back to say it's only a group of 4. What I'm saying is nearly 200 countries are now going to start in the qualifying groups.
But it's called the World Cup.
Why
should every country not have access to it?
Because, Mike, the 200th team in the world playing football... I could beat single-handedly on that 5-a-side pitch opposite TalkSport Towers.
I bet you England get a 0-0 draw with them.
That's how bad.
Well, England will get a 0-0 draw.
That's how bad standards are going to be. It's going to be utterly ridiculous.
We've already got ridiculously bad teams in the qualifying stages, right?
Everybody always says, only in Australasia.
No, not
true. But now we're going to have them in Europe. We're going to have them in Asia.
England topped their group.
In South America.
England topped their group, did they not, when they qualified for the World Cup in 2014?
Yeah.
Roy Hodgson did such a great job. I don't think he lost the game, did he?
No, and he got an improved contract on the back of it.
So how good are those teams? And why are they even in the business of qualifying?
But it's going to get more and more useless. You don't understand. You can't take my point.
No, I understand your point, but your point is a spurious one, because
it's not spurious.
It is totally spurious, because actually this does not dilute the quality.
Of course
what it does is it expands the possibility of better, younger and different countries coming into the game.
But they haven't got any good footballers.
Well, you don't know that.
Of course I know that.
How do you know that?
Because I see the qualification groups in places like New Zealand and Samoa, where New Zealand, who aren't even a middle...
New Zealand did better in the World Cup in South Africa than England did.
who aren't even a middle-ranking football power in the world, were beating people like Samoa 22-0 in the
United States of America did better in the South African World Cup than England did. You would say that America doesn't have a decent team.
So when Gibraltar appear in one of the 16 groups of 3 in the same group
if they qualify
as Germany,
if they
of course they'll qualify. Everybody will qualify.
Everybody will not qualify.
Luxembourg will qualify.
No, they won't.
San Marino will qualify.
There are more than 48,
they have to.
No, there are more than 48 countries in the world, right?
Yeah, well, I've told you that you're going to need 200 countries to start the qualifying process regionally anyway.
So by far and away, large parts of those countries will not qualify.
So if we get down to the 180th team, but the qualifying games themselves will be ludicrously one-sided and pathetic.
Did you think the Euros were worse because they had more teams in them?
Absolutely, of course they were. Of course they were. The best competitions ever have always been the teams that have competed in a 16.
You come from the old world.
I come from the good world.
No, you come from the old world, where you think that you have the right to dictate to every other country in the world whether or not they're allowed into your little club. No. But that doesn't play anymore, I'm afraid. It's not going to work anymore.
All I want is quality within football to be upheld, and the more teams you invite into the World Cup, the more you dilute the quality.
No, I don't think
I'm
that's
telling you, never mind about the quality of this, it's the end of international football. Because no player worth his mettle who in those days in 2026 will be earning £2 to £3 million a week will bother turning up for a 30-day tournament in the summer when he's got
maybe that's a
whole
thing.
Season with
maybe that's a
Real
good
Madrid,
thing.
Barcelona, Chelsea.
Barcelona?
Yeah, anybody you name.
Well, maybe that's a good thing.
It's the end of international football.
Maybe that is a good thing.
International football will be an under-23 game by the time this competition comes
maybe
about.
Maybe that would be for the best. Because
maybe
in the end, international football, for most people who watch Premier League football and Champions League football, is very, very boring and incredibly dull.
Some would say that.
And not very interesting.
Some would say that.
I mean, maybe a lot of England fans.
Well,
there may be a lot of
trend.
England fans listening to this saying, you're talking absolute rubbish. We love going to World Cups. We love taking part in tournaments. Well, I don't know why. No. Because England always disappoints. It's as simple as that.
International fans will totally agree with what I'm saying. If they want to call, give us a call, please, on 08717 223344. This is the end of international football because it'll never be the same again. 48 teams from 2026. There aren't even 32 decent football nations in the world.
What did you say in 1998 then when they expanded it from 24 to 32?
I said it was a bad thing.
And was it a bad thing?
Yeah, it was.
Why?
Because the more you dilute it, the worse the quality gets.
So are you saying the quality of World Cup winners since 1998 has been worse than before?
Yes,
that's
I do.
Plainly nonsense.
No, it's not nonsense.
Absolute and utter
What
dribble.
do you think about the Rugby World Cup and some of the teams that are...
The Rugby World Cup is a completely different kettle of fish because the Rugby World Cup...
Because hardly anybody plays rugby.
Well, not so many teams and not so many countries in the world play rugby.
But football's going down exactly the same route, just by greater numbers.
No, I mean, all the countries that now do play rugby do play it to a reasonable standard. I mean, for example, Argentina were a laughing stock of a team when they first were brought into the World Cup, and now they're actually quite a decent team. Italy, when they were first brought into the Six Nations, were considered to be the team that would always win the wooden spoon. That hasn't always proved to be the case.
Actually,
what are you talking about?
Actually, what's happened is the quality of the players in the major rugby footballing nations has gone down.
What are you talking about?
Argentina and Italy have not come up. No, that's
not true. Are you telling... Well, why is it that people say the All Blacks currently are possibly the best rugby team, and not only just rugby team, but the best team of all time in any sport?
Because they always do. They always say the latest team is the greatest team.
No, you just told me that the quality's gone down.
It has gone down.
You're talking absolute rot.
The England team...
You didn't even know who one of the foremost Australian rugby players was, having worked with him for 2 weeks, sat next to him. You didn't know who he was, did you?
Who?
Campese, David Campese.
Yeah, my friend, yes.
Your friend, when you covered the Rugby World Cup. What year was it?
That was 2007.
2007.
Yes.
You sat with a guy called Dave.
Yes.
Throughout every game.
Yes.
And it wasn't until the final that you realised, because you saw his picture in the programme, that he was the most famous rugby player and one of the best rugby players that ever lived.
No, that's not true.
Yes, it is.
That's not true. I just didn't want to, appear to be
you didn't know who he was.
An excited fan working around him like everybody else was.
How about this from Scottish Bull? He says, Porky hasn't got a clue what he's talking about. Here we go. Porky's going to offend every football-playing country in the world.
Well, listen, I mean, take Scotland, for instance, right? They were a huge supporter of expanding the number of teams in the last European Championships.
Yes, they were.
Because they thought that'll make it easier for them to get there.
Indeed.
And what happened?
They didn't make it.
They didn't get there.
No.
Well,
that's how bad they are.
They didn't get there.
Which proves my point. So if you're not good enough, you won't qualify.
Well,
Simple as that.
Yeah, but the problem is the quality gets worse and worse and worse. If teams like Scotland, which have a really proud footballing history and heritage and ancestry...
Matter. History matters not a jot.
Have become so bad, they can't even get through a qualifying group of 5 teams to get to the European Championships.
Yep.
It's the end of international football.
Well, you keep saying it's the end of international football.
I'm telling you, it's the end of international football.
I mean, when was the last time you got anything right? This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on. Don't ask him whether international football is dead because he's already decided that it is. How about this from Wizard? Porky demonstrating why the rest of the football world hate England. The arrogance is unbelievable. England continually fail.
I'm not even talking about England. I'm talking about the world. I'm talking about the quality of football in the world and the fact
you're wrong.
that the world.
I mean, your analogy about rugby has proved that you're wrong because in actual fact, the rugby, the standard of rugby has got up and up and up and up.
No.
And if you are going to tell me that rugby players nowadays would lose to a team from 20 years ago, you would be completely and utterly wrong.
Okay, well, tell me then why the next Cricket World Cup has been reduced to 10
now
teams.
Now you're moving to cricket.
Well, you've demonstrated rugby.
No, you were the one that brought rugby into the argument. Now you're bringing cricket into the argument.
Why has the Cricket World Cup been reduced to 10 teams?
I don't know anything about the cricket. I don't know anything about the Cricket World Cup.
Because the international...
Cricket is another country another sport which not very many countries play.
Can I just tell you, the International Cricket Board have been reducing it to 10 to improve the quality of the individual teams. If you allow too many teams, too many countries into the competition...
It's not a valid comparison because not very many countries...
It's one of the world's great games.
Football is the biggest game in the world.
Oh, wow, you spotted that, have you?
Every country in the world pretty much plays football. Well, at least one of us is on the ball. I mean, we can't have two of us talking absolute utter cobblers, right?
Well,
here's the point.
Says, I agree with Porky.
Oh, well done, Matt. Take yourself off to the nearest sanitarium and get your head screwed off. Here's the point, right? Yeah. If you talk about cricket and rugby, they are limited games in terms of their appeal around the world, in terms of participation around the world. Football is played by everybody. I mean, look at this from Becky. It's a great idea of a 48-team World Cup. Could see England getting out of the group stage, playing New Caledonian and the Galapagos Islands.
And where does Becky come from?
She comes from London, actually.
No. Where does she reside?
Oh, where does she live? She lives in New Zealand.
Exactly, and that's one country which is a minor football nation. Well, but
they've got to the World Cup already. New Zealand have already been in the World Cup
once. Who's hoping now that on a regular basis New Zealand will be competitors in the World Cup?
What makes you think that England have somehow got a God-given right to tell everybody else how to operate?
They haven't. They haven't got a God-given right. I just happen to be an Englishman with an opinion. I'm not a policy maker.
Really?
I'm not a policy maker.
Englishman with an opinion.
Okay.
Is that how you describe yourself?
Here's another tweeter here, James. I usually agree with MG, but I agree with Mike Parry on this one.
Why does that matter to you?
On the World Cup,
because somebody tweets in and says you're right, so that makes you think you're right.
You do shout an awful lot over me, and people can't
shout
hear
a lot
what I'm
over
saying.
you. I'm going to start shouting over you a lot more.
On the World Cup, reducing the amount of teams would be a better idea, in my opinion. There's dozens and dozens of tweets coming in like this.
All right, well, you can read dozens and dozens out in a minute.
Ashley
First, let's talk to Andy instead.
Bang on about the World Cup idea.
Than you are. Let's talk to Andy. Andy, hello.
Hello, guys. How you doing?
Yeah, very good morning. Can you bring a bit of sense to this argument, please?
Well, you're not going to like this, MG. I'm afraid on the subject of the Football World Cup, I would say that I 100% agree with Porky. I think it's ridiculous.
Listen, it's not a question of whether I like it or not. You're perfectly entitled to your opinion. I just would like somebody to explain to me why it's the death of international football. Because Porky can't.
Yes, I can. I've explained. The quality will go down and down and down, Andy. But you've told him that I can't tell you, and I can tell you.
Well, you can't. You've had a go. Let's Andy have a go. You tell me why it's the death of international football, Andy.
I think there's just too many. That seems crazy to have so many teams in the Football World Cup. So on that basis, I agree with what Porky's saying.
Thank you.
Probably a bit strong to say it's the death of football, but
so it's not the death of international football then.
It's just too many teams. It's just too many teams.
Of course there are.
Small groups of three. It turns into a bit of a farce, really.
It does.
I mean,
poor.
I don't think you understand the way they're going to structure it, though, do you?
Well, I think I do.
All right, well, explain to me how it's going to be so much worse then.
Because, just based on the fact that there's just too many teams in the tournament, and I think that will. In the end, it will mean, as probably Porky's trying to get at, it will mean you will have groups of extremely strong teams.
Well, they're going to have seeded teams, aren't they?
They will have seeded temes,
right? So
and they will have teams. They will have teams that are just going to get thrashed out.
Exactly, making up the numbers.
Yeah,
but we already
have. All they're doing, Andy, surely, is moving the goalposts, if you'll pardon the analogy, so that some of the teams who currently play in qualifying will actually get there because they'll be better than some of the other teams who play in qualifying. And at the moment, you might as well say that the whole farcical system, which involves England playing in a group which they always win, but when they get to the World Cup, they always lose. It doesn't make any sense either, does it?
Yeah, but to me, that means what will end up is, if you're saying that England get to a tournament, and as we all know, they don't do very well, and yet they are a team that are strong in their qualifying.
But they top the group every time.
Yeah, what does that say about...
Well, it says the qualification... Well, that's what I'm saying. It says the qualification process is a joke. So I think we have to change that as well. Let's talk to Sean, who's in Stockport. Thanks for your call, Andy. Sean, very good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you doing?
Yeah,
hi,
Sean. Very well. What would you like to say, Sean?
I'm agreeing with you, Mike.
Which one?
Mike, Mike Graham.
Yeah.
But it won't make really any difference. The only difference, European-wise, is three more. I think from reading the plans, 3 more teams are going to qualify.
Yeah, from Europe. That's right.
As regarding New Zealand, they qualified for South Africa anyway. And with them, they will get one automatic place rather than the playoff with South America.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So in actual fact, so it won't make that much difference. It will not be the death of international football. I don't know what everybody's getting their knickers in such a twist about.
Sean, if I said to you, name me 30 great footballing nations in the world, you'd struggle by the time you got to 25. If I said, name 40 great footballing nations in the world, you couldn't get there. And if I said, name 48, you'd give up and go home. There aren't 48 great footballing nations in the world.
Well, why don't you tell that to the FIFA World Rankings? Tell that to the FIFA World Rankings.
I have told them.
Have you?
I have. This is what I'm telling them now. It's ludicrous to have a competition which finalises with 48 countries playing a sport that 48 countries cannot play at the same level. It's ludicrous.
How many countries do you think there are in the world?
There's nearly 200 countries in the world.
Exactly, and you're only asking for a quarter of them to take part in the finals of the World Cup.
Yes, but some of them are so small, like Luxembourg, they're about as big as a field, and they haven't got a railway station or a road.
Luxembourg might not qualify.
Yeah.
Well, Luxembourg might not qualify.
Well, let's hope they don't, otherwise the quality will get even lower.
England might not qualify, for heaven's sake.
Well,
I wouldn't get so sure about that.
No, you don't understand. The whole idea for this is to raise revenues and money.
Ask Sean something.
Well,
He's taking the time to talk to call us up. Terribly sorry, Sean. See, the trouble with Porky is if someone disagrees with him, he doesn't want to hear from them anymore.
No, not at all. Sean, please go on, answer my question. Can you name 48 great footballing nations on the globe?
No, but...
No, you can't. Exactly.
30 years ago, would you be able to name 32 that had qualified for a World Cup?
Well, you could just about get there to 32.
Do you want me to go backwards from 48, right? Democratic Republic of Congo is 48.
No, I'm not interested in
Australia is 47. Denmark is 46. Japan is 45. Serbia.
Sorry, what are you saying?
Serbia is 44. You told me that we can't name 48
No, I asked
teams.
Sean. I didn't ask you with a list in front of you. I asked Sean. Well,
Serbia, Czech Republic, Greece, Sweden, Paraguay, Romania, Algeria, Korean Republic, Egypt. These are all teams that have been to World Cups.
Which you're reading off your notebook.
Yes, of course I'm reading off my notebook.
I'm talking about stopping the man in the street and saying, name 48 great footballing nations on the globe.
Why would you do that when I can Google the number of the top 48 teams in the world?
Because you're being given the information by somebody else. You haven't got a mind of your own, as usual.
What do you mean I've got a mind of my own?
Somebody else's information.
If I asked you what day it was, most times you couldn't answer.
Listen, insults are not going to get you where you are. You've lost the argument already.
I haven't lost the argument.
People are ringing in and supporting me. Just accept it and stop shouting.
Yeah, okay. Here's what we've had so far. 2 calls, one agreeing with you, one agreeing with me.
Yeah, but that's because they're the 2 calls you picked.
Well, if you want to pick another one?
No, not at all. Because don't worry.
I think we should let Sean speak.
Sean, please.
I don't know what you want. I don't know why you're giving Sean such a hard time.
No, I'm not giving Sean a hard time. Sean, the difficulty is if you are going to pay to go and watch a World Cup in 2026, and we don't even know where it is going to be.
It's in America.
Yet.
It's going to be in America.
Well, we don't know that yet.
Yeah, we do.
Then
it will be.
So even Sean knows it's going to be in America.
Then you're going to go over there and you say, I tell you what, because England are based in New England, I'll go to Boston, and then you go and watch England play the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
What's wrong with that? They're 48th in the world.
Exactly.
They're
at the
higher
moment.
than Scotland.
Yeah, exactly. And that will be a 6-0 victory to England.
I doubt that very much.
It'll be a non-game.
How will it be 6-0?
The Democratic Republic of the Congo will exit the tournament, probably after the first game, and the whole thing will be a shambolic mess.
Well, let's describe your scenario. Sean, why don't you describe to Porky what happened to England when they went to Brazil?
Well, it's an absolute farce.
Of course it was, and I was the biggest critic of it.
The last game was England. What was it? England Costa Rica, which meant absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And there were still people going to watch it. People watch it because it's the World Cup.
Yeah. And they'd gone all the way to Brazil.
If it is Congo, then you're going to have Congolese fans that go over to watch it.
Yeah.
Or people that think I will watch it on the off chance because it's a team I'm, to see what they're like.
And also, Sean, why should countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, if they qualify, not have an opportunity to play in the World Cup? Why shouldn't they? What's it got to do with the so-called old countries of football to tell everybody else they can't play?
Do you think San Marino should play in the finals?
If they qualify, yes.
But you see,
but they won't qualify.
But you gerrymander the tournament until everybody qualifies.
No,
it's
incorrect.
Ludicrous.
No, that's not true.
This is football at its very, very worst, manipulatively. It's been gerrymandered to bring the level of football down to the lowest common denominator, okay?
They're not getting that far.
Lowest common denominator.
Is it not giving the smaller countries the opportunity to improve their quality of football?
Yes, it absolutely is.
No, it's not. This is the same as what happened to the education system in this country. Let's call it.
So now you're changing the subject.
Let's call it comprehensive. Let's expand schools with hundreds of pupils in it and bring down the level of education to the lowest common denominator so that nobody can fail.
So you don't want to help people.
So nobody can fail.
You don't want to help people who are struggling in their education.
I want to help people through strength, not weakness. Okay.
I see.
You help people through strength. You don't help people through weakness.
I think strength is what we all need to deal with Mr. Parry tonight. But, Sean, I appreciate your call. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure that some of what you said will have filtered through into Mr. Parry's tiny brain. Let me read you the top the teams in the 30s, right? Ukraine, number 30. Austria, 31. Northern Ireland, 32. Senegal, 33. Côte d'Ivoire, 34. Tunisia, 35.
It's all very boring.
No, it's not boring. These are all countries that have appeared at World Cups and have taken part in the finals of many competitions, and they are all as decent as any number of other teams. And I think for you to somehow say to them, you must not play in the World Cup is outrageous. Yeah. Let's talk to Adam, who's up in Scotland. Adam, very good morning to you.
Hey, sounds. Hello.
Yes, what would you like to say, Adam?
I'd like to say Scotland are as good as England.
What? What would you like to say?
Scotland are as good as England.
As good as?
As good as England.
No, they're not. No, they're not, mate.
No, you can't.
Scotland,
you can make that argument.
Scotland are rubbish at international level. It's a shame to have to say that, but I'm afraid you haven't produced a great individual footballer for about 20 years.
Scotland are ranked number 67 in the world, I'm afraid, Adam. So on the current...
well, your team are absolute nonsense.
Whose team?
Do you know what I mean? No, England are absolute...
It's not my team. England aren't my team.
They're my team, actually.
They're Porky's team.
England are nonsense.
Well, they did beat Scotland when they played them, didn't they?
Right, okay.
Adam, if I were you, mate, I'd get the percolator on and just have a strong cup, mate. But thank you very much for calling.
Thanks for your call,
good
Adam.
to hear from you.
Yeah, the great thing about being in Scotland, right, is you can have a few drams any night that you like. And you can imagine that Scotland are better than England.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you're going to be able to do it, to be honest.
In your dreams, you know.
This is TalkSport. We're going to take loads more of your calls as well. I'll be giving Porky the rundown of the top 20 teams in the FIFA World Rankings.
Oh, yeah, can't wait.
Very soon. Also, Mark Donaldson will be joining us. He'll have something to say about this.
Yeah.
This is TalkSport. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics, of course. There will be a podcast coming out. I've got a great tweet here from Marcus who said, Everton's record signing placed the 48th best-rated team in the world, the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yes.
You know that, right?
He's out on loan.
Balassi.
Yes.
Yannick Balassi.
Oh, no. Yannick Balassi. Sorry, no.
He's injured.
He's injured. He's going to be injured for another year.
He's a great player.
He's a great player.
He plays for the Democratic Republic of Congo.
He does.
Wouldn't you like to see him at a World Cup?
Probably, but he'd be in isolation there as a Congolese player.
Why would he be in isolation?
Because none of the other members of the team are as good as him.
Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Well, I mean, he might be in isolation the same way that some players playing for other countries might be in isolation. But, you can't say that the Democratic Republic of Congo and Yannick Balassi particularly isn't allowed to go and play the World Cup if they qualify.
Well, Gibraltar will end up in the World Cup.
They won't.
That's ludicrous.
You're talking rubbish.
Gibraltar's still a colony of the British Empire.
They won't qualify. James says this, expanding the World Cup gets smaller nations included and decent players may start playing for their birth countries rather than jumping ship, which is a very good point as well.
No. All players play for their birth countries. That's not a problem. Yes, they do.
What about Januzaj?
Januzaj can play for a number of countries through his mixed parenthood.
Yes, indeed. But he didn't choose the country of his birth, did he?
Senegalese players can play for France because their parents have French passports.
But they didn't play for the country of their birth. And when they find out that they can play for the country of their birth, they may actually prefer to do it.
Sorry.
Here's one from someone who says, Porky thinks England would beat the Democratic Republic of Congo 6-0. Last I checked, we couldn't even beat Iceland. Blank.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, and that again is another point to look at. You know, is there a balancing leveler in the World Cup when you put 48 teams in there? No, of course there isn't.
The point is, the bottom line is,
but a team like England who have failed consistently to produce good coaches will be found out.
The bottom line is that the World Cup has been expanding over the years since it first started in 1930, right? In Uruguay,
wasn't it?
It went from 13 teams then to 34. In 1934, went to 16 teams.
Yep.
Then in 1982, went to 24 teams.
Yep.
And in 1998, went to 32 teams. You know, the world did not collapse around the World Cup. Nothing really changed. And if you're going to tell me that it's now somehow a worse tournament now with 32 teams in it than it was with 24, then I think you're wrong.
Well, I've covered about 4 World Cups.
Yeah.
And there have been teams of 24 in the World Cups. I remember in Italy, 1990. That was definitely 24. I've covered World Cups with 32 teams, like Germany and that kind of stuff. And that's about it.
Yeah, but you can't
32
tell me.
32 is about it.
Well, no, but
even 32 is too much for me. I thought 24 was the optimum
you
figure.
sound like Jeremy Corbyn with his wages cap. You know, let's start it at 24, then we'll go. Oh no, we'll go to 32. No, we'll go back to 15.
No, you're telling me the figures have been going up, not me. And I'm saying that
the World Cup. Yeah, but the World Cup has not suffered as a result of going up to 32 teams, has it?
No, it has. In my view, it has.
How has it?
Because it's brought in teams from around the world who weren't really qualified to play in a major final.
When you say
thus devaluing the whole quality of the finals.
Would you then say that those teams that qualified for the knockout stage of the World Cup, as they did in Brazil, should be the only teams that are invited to play in the finals?
I think that instead of spending billions of pounds on qualifying games and qualifying tournaments like the one England are at the moment, where they're going to win every game, what you should do is you should take the rankings that you've just been reading out assiduously and say, well, look, we're going to have a 24-team World Cup.
Why can't you just answer the question instead of rambling on meaninglessly?
And we are going to invite the top 24 teams in the world.
Right, well, England wouldn't be in there, would they?
They wouldn't know at the moment, so that's their problem. But what I'm saying is, why would you... To go through all these games where England are clearly going to win them, you know, Gareth Southgate can say at the end, a brilliant record, you know, won every game in the qualifiers. Well, Roy Hodgson won every game in the qualifiers, but we were no good.
Same goes to the Euros.
So the whole thing is a gerrymandered contract.
Yeah, but it's already that. That's my point. This is finally, you've seen the light. You've finally actually understood what I've been saying to you. The qualifying process for the World Cup right now is a joke.
So what do you want to do about it?
So I would much rather have the teams who are much better than those who are terrible in the qualifying getting through to a final, then getting through to a knockout stage. It will not take any longer, and it will actually...
I've just proposed a solution.
What's that?
And that is that you put the top 24 teams into the World Cup every 4 years.
How do you rank them?
They're ranked on the basis of their players, because the players themselves, only really care and will only care in the future.
So you give players points then?
Of course you do, on their club performances.
You now with your idea.
No. That's exactly where I'm from. On their club performances.
So on club performances, you rank the players?
Absolutely.
So that means you want every player playing in Europe, in other words?
Absolutely, yeah, because all players...
So how do you rank people playing in the South American leagues, for example?
Well, they play in Europe.
So what if they don't play in Europe?
But they do. All the best players in the world. All the best players in the world play in Europe.
That's not
full
true.
Stop. Okay.
That's not
all right.
true.
Name me one best player in the world who doesn't play in Europe.
I'm telling you that in the World Cup.
You just said it's not true.
Well, Frazier, as Tim Vickery calls him, who was the centre forward for Brazil in the World Cup finals in Brazil.
Oh yes.
Okay. He didn't play for a country in Europe.
Oh, who's he played for?
He played for a club he played for Corinthians or somebody, didn't he? In Brazil.
Corinthians or somebody, so we're not sure. That's how big an impression he's made on you.
Well, no, he was the centre forward that was chosen.
It might be Flamengo.
You don't even know who I'm talking about,
might be Sao Paulo. No, I don't really, no.
Well, if you want to be objectionable about it, that's fine. I'll just get up and slap you around. But the point is, that you cannot be Eurocentric about absolutely everything. You can't say, if players don't play in Europe, they can't play in the World Cup. How ludicrous is that?
I didn't say that.
Yes, you did.
I've never said that.
You said that there would be no possibility of ranking any other player unless they played in Europe.
No, I didn't. I said the best players play in Europe. They could be ranked there. Other players, of course, play in South America. Some players play in Africa. They're not many.
So how do you rank them?
And some players play in Australia.
So how do you rank them?
You rank them on a percentage point basis, comparing them to other players.
It sounds like something Heath Robinson would come up with.
No.
So how does this work, this ranking system of yours, then?
What do you mean, how does it work?
Well, how many points do you get for playing for Manchester United?
Well, at the moment, I think you would agree, we have a very, very sophisticated method of analysing players' performances. That's why you can work out...
What, you mean in terms of assists and all that?
Absolutely. You can work out how many passes they've made, how much time they're on the ball, how many miles they ran during the game.
So basically you hand it all over to Opta.
Yes, of course you do.
Okay.
Of course you do, because that's the scientific way to do it.
What if you make more passes?
Then you take human error
What if
out
you
of
make
it?
more passes in the Australian A-League than you do in the Premier League?
It's all qualified by...
Somebody has to then say the A-League is 30 times worse than, say, for example, the Premier League.
Exactly. It's on a sliding
and so the MLS
rule.
is only 20 times worse.
Exactly. It's on a sliding
That's
rule
such a
like
snobbish way to do it.
You've got the idea, though. You've got the idea of how it should be
Why don't
done.
you just have them playing each other, which is a much fairer idea, and then you see how they get along? Because on paper, England has one of the best teams in the world.
Yeah.
But in reality, they're absolute and utter rubbish.
I'm telling you.
I'm telling you Northern Ireland would do better than England.
By the time we start playing players £1 million a week, and we're very close to that, by the way, now, some players in China, I think maybe this year, will get £1 million a week. Once you've got a player earning that amount of money, their clubs will be more and more reluctant to release them for international
Well, that's a
duty
different
anyway.
argument.
It's not. It's all part of what's going to happen to international football. And all I'm saying is, by making the World Cup 48
countries... You're saying the death
countries,
of international football.
It is the death of international football.
Well, apparently not.
It is, and it's being accelerated by this ludicrous plan to make 48 teams good enough to play in the World Cup finals. They're not. The World Cup finals will be a joke.
Well, the World Cup finals knockout stage, the World Cup final knockout stage will have 32 teams in it, right?
It'll be a joke.
It will not be a joke.
It'll be
because the top 32 teams in the world right now would all qualify.
So what was the point? What's the point of having 16 groups of 3 if it then boils down?
Because it gives access to the tournament to other countries who might otherwise not be able to play in it.
And why is that good?
Well, it's good because it stimulates football in other parts of the world.
Well, how does it do that?
Because it brings fans into it. It makes people see their country doing well on the main stage. That's not a myth. Every single World Cup, right, there is a team that does better.
That's an inclusive myth.
No, it's not. Every single World Cup, there is a team that does better than anyone ever thought they would.
Right.
The last World Cup, they happened to be in England's group. It was Costa Rica. Costa Rica were a far better team and far more attractive team to watch than anything that England turned out, right?
So,
and therefore, you will get those kind of surprises. It will be fun. It will be more inclusive, and it will allow more football to be played in more countries. And it will encourage young kids, grassroots football, which is what FIFA wants to do, to actually get more people playing football.
So if Samoa get there, right, you're saying that, Samoa get...
If they get there, they'll get there on merit.
And you're saying that it's going to be in North America, so let's pretend that Samoa are playing in a group in, say, Chicago, okay?
Yeah.
So in this 3-country group in Chicago, you've got Samoa and England and a middle-ranking team like, I don't know, Siberia or something like that.
Siberia aren't a country.
Well, they might be by then, okay?
No, well, why don't you try and stick to reality?
Slovakia, then.
Slovakia. Well, I'll tell you what, I bet you England wouldn't get out of the group.
Hang on, England, Slovakia and Samoa. Well, Samoa certainly won't. So what
you don't know that.
So what you're saying is this will really benefit Samoa because 3 Samoan fans will make this ludicrously long journey to Chicago. Watch their team get beaten.
You might be surprised how many people from Samoa actually live in America. Do you have any idea how many Samoans play American football? Well, because they're rather good at it, actually.
Well, how does that benefit Samoa, then?
Because it benefits Samoa because anything that happens on an international stage for a smaller country is a great thing. Look what happened to Northern Ireland.
It's not. More and more people leave Samoa and go to America.
Look what happened to Northern Ireland when they did so.
Samoa?
Well, you're being a plank now. Look how well Northern Ireland was presented when Northern Ireland did so well at the Euros. Look how well Wales were presented when they did so well at the Euros.
Did millions of companies then sort of say, I tell you what, Gareth Bale's pretty good. Let's go and set up a business in the Rhondda Valley where all those closed down mines are.
They may well do. You're just going to now insult loads of small countries in your normal way.
No, I'm just saying you're ludicrous inclusive. It's all inclusive. It makes countries better. How do you make countries better?
Of course, it gives them a better feel-good factor.
6-0 by England in Chicago.
Nobody's been beaten 6-0 by England in recent memory.
They will with 48 teams in the final.
I don't know where you're getting this from. There is not one team in the 48 that I will quite happily list for you that England can beat 6-0. I promise you that.
Oh, of course there is. I'm just following the logic.
All right. Well, can they beat Iceland 6-0?
They couldn't when they last played them.
No. Can they beat the Netherlands 6-0?
Of course not.
Can they beat the Republic of Ireland 6-0?
The Netherlands are a brilliant footballing nation.
Can they beat Turkey 6-0? Can they beat Slovakia 6-0? No.
Why don't you get down to the 48th?
Well, I've already done to the 48th. It's the Democratic Republic of Congo. Your man plays for them, Balati.
Yeah, and England could beat them 6-0.
Well, you say that. They've also got a couple of other Premier League players.
Germany could certainly beat them 6-0.
Well,
Tell you that.
You might think that.
Yeah,
but, you're arguing from a very spurious point of view.
No, I'm not.
And I can tell because of the way you're insulting every country in the world.
I am not
insulting. You're losing the plot.
Any country. I'm talking from a position of logic, which is something which seems to be escaping you.
You've never known. You wouldn't know logic if you fell on it. Here's one from James. He says, I bet if Porky was the FIFA president, he would gerrymander the whole process and make sure that the whole thing was staged every World Cup in Europe.
Well, no, I wouldn't do that because that's not right. But it shouldn't be played in countries which struggle with the facility.
They haven't said where they're going to host it.
The facility provision. They really shouldn't.
Here's one from Dickie. Says, even that bladderated Scottish guy was making more sense than Porky tonight.
No, he wasn't.
We're going to talk to Mark Donaldson and find out what he's got to say. I'm sure he'll be able to bring a little bit more intelligence to the debate.
Well, more than you've got, hopefully.
Talk Sport, we are the two mics. Dennis says this, if the Euros hadn't expanded, then Wales wouldn't have got to the semi-finals. Look at where they are now.
Yes.
#plank. So that's a pretty good reason to take that further.
Wales did terrifically well.
And use that logic to use in the World Cup. Michael says this, 22% of FIFA nations will qualify for the 2026 World Cup, the same as when the tournament expanded from 16 to 24 teams in 1982. So, you know,
and the rest is just a waste of time.
Well, no, they're not a waste of time. You're completely missing the point. Let's talk to Mr. Donaldson.
Indeed.
Over in the US of A, Mark Donaldson from ESPN. I'm sure he'll have something interesting to say about this. Mark, a very good morning to you.
Morning, gents. How are you both?
Very well
indeed, Mark.
I'm on the point of throttling Porky here because he's doing his little Englander thing.
Just a normal week then.
Just a normal week. Normally
again.
It doesn't happen so early in the week, to be honest. Normally it's about Friday when I'm ready to do that. But what do you make of FIFA's plan? I mean, I'm saying that actually there are ways that it could be good. It could be great. He's saying it's the death of international football.
I don't mind it. I think those that haven't really researched into it and say, oh, it allows the smaller nations the more of an opportunity. Northern Ireland won their group, their qualifying group in the Euros. It's irrespective of how many teams went through. They were group winners, so they went through as well. Now, it's not going to mean that suddenly your San Marinos and your Andorras of the world and your Liechtensteins are going to qualify, because there's only going to be, I think it's 3 more than Russia and 2 more European nations than Qatar, or the other way around, I think it is as well. So it's not going to open the floodgates. You've got to remember, when Scotland used to be good, 1998 was our last tournament, there were a lot of countries that hadn't either existed yet or were in a position of they weren't strong.
Yeah.
But now the problem for someone like Scotland is the likes of Turkey, who once lost 8-0 to England, if you remember that game.
Yes, of course,
it doesn't happen anymore. There's a lot of stronger nations. They've got better, and we've stood still. So it's up to us to get to and people say, oh, it's about the luck of the draw. There's a bit of that, because the Northern Ireland group, I would have liked to have been in that group. We would have still found a way to screw it up. But I don't mind it. On the whole, I'm not holding out any hope. The one. I don't think it's going to make it any.
I don't think it's going to make it substantially worse, though. Is the bottom line?
No, and it's just slightly different. Now, what you could get better teams being knocked out in this kind of first round or preliminary round or whatever, because you're going to play 2 games and the bottom team are going to go out.
Yeah.
Now, the people I feel sorry for are the parents of kids that want a Panini 2026 sticker album. It's going to cost about £10,000 to fill.
Yeah, well, it will.
Yeah, but that's because it's a waste-of-time tournament. Why don't they just start the tournament with knockout of the 32 instead of the prelim of 16 groups of 3, which is a complete fiasco and a complete waste of time?
Because it gives these countries a chance to be there.
And will only generate TV revenues for FIFA, which is what this is all about anyway.
Nail hit on head. Revenues is the key word here.
Yeah.
Champions League. I mean, look, the 3 of us are probably a wee bit bored now of some of the group stages in the Champions League. It's the usual suspects that qualify, and it's all been done for money. I think there's maybe.
I don't agree with that. Actually, I'm not bored with watching international football if it's good. And sometimes some of the best international football is the stuff that Porky wouldn't watch. You know, the games between Albania and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Oh, you'd watch that, would you?
Of course I would. Albania played pretty well in the last tournament they were in. I think you'll find
ridiculous. I mean, Mark, would you sort of rush home and say, "Oh, got to get home tonight, fellas. Can't come to the pub and have a couple of pints. Albania are playing the Democratic Republic of Congo. Can't wait to watch that one." What a ludicrous assertion.
Why is that ludicrous? If you like football, why wouldn't you want to watch it? I am telling the truth.
It's just utter garbage, that is.
No, you just want to watch lots of people who play in the Premier League.
Who are you trying to win over with this?
I'm not trying to win anybody over. I'm just telling you what I think.
Ridiculous, inclusive
argument.
Why don't you
let Mark speak?
Yeah, go on, Mark.
Element of snobbery about this. I covered Euro 2016 for ESPN, and one of my assignments was Albania against Romania.
Yeah.
And when I got the assignment, you think, you're just delighted to be part of it, but then you think to yourself, well, okay, it's not one of the bigger games, but it produced one of the moments of the tournament, because Albania beat Romania in Lyon, and it was their first ever win. I covered Northern Ireland against Ukraine, again. Not necessarily the biggest game, but some of the biggest stories came about as a result of two teams that weren't meeting in what you would call the biggest game. Yeah. So I think there's an element of snobbery in that we want the best teams play, and I get that as well. But you've got to rely on, hopefully, the cream rising to the top here, because along the way you're going to get some fantastic storylines like Albania beating Romania.
No, but hang on, Mark. With the greatest respect, the only people who got excited about Albania beating Romania were the Albanians.
That's not true. It was a great game of football.
Nobody else cared.
No, it was a great game of football. I remember watching it, and for the very same reason.
The Romanians were pretty concerned as well, because they got beat.
I said to Mike earlier, Mark, that one of the teams that wouldn't, generally speaking, have been given much attention before the World Cup in Brazil was Costa Rica. It turned out they were a far better team than England. Turned out that they were a much more entertaining team to watch than many of the teams that were there. But in Porky's world, they would be described as a third world country who are no good.
I don't describe countries as third world countries. I describe them as developing countries.
Developing countries, right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you said Holland were a great football team. I mean, Holland didn't even qualify for the Euros.
I said Holland were a great footballing nation. Please go on, Mark.
1990, never mind recently, 1990,
Italy.
Costa Rica beat Scotland.
Yeah, that's right, they did.
I mean, they were a developing nation at the time, and Scotland were poor. I just think there's stories in every major tournament.
Wasn't that Ali's army marching on Italy?
No, Ali's army was 78,
and
there was Iran, there was Peru. We do the hard part.
That's right.
And we get the results against the teams like the Dutch and various other things, but we always find a way to fail. I think just in general, if you love football, you'll love stories like Albania beating Romania. Sadiku with that goal was phenomenal. And you love Northern Ireland beating Ukraine as well. I was lucky enough to do those two games. So, yes, you're going to get the best teams going through or more than likely. It's very rare you get John Jensen's Denmark team like they were in 1992. Remember, I think was it because Yugoslavia
had broken up? That's right. Yeah, it's broken up.
Something like that.
They had to recall them, yeah.
So, and you got a story like Denmark. I mean,
well, there's stories like that littered through the history of football. I mean, I've got a tweet here from Scott who says South Korea 2002 World Cup. They'd never won a game in the World Cup previously, but they reached the semi-final, beating Italy en route.
But they had home advantage.
Home advantage.
They were the hosts, so that was bound to happen.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, why didn't it happen to Brazil?
What happened to
Brazil's home advantage went backwards, didn't it?
No. Brazil's history in the competition is so magnificent they couldn't possibly have kept it up through generations. It's simple as that.
Richard says this. Porky's so stupid and ignorant tonight. I wonder how he's still alive.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, that's written by a man called Richard. How do I know that Richard isn't a bit of a plankhead himself?
Well, that's not much of an argument. Anyway, Mark, so, I mean, when it happens, it is more than likely to be in 2026 in America.
Yeah.
In the United States of America alone, do you think? Or, I mean, that was another thing Porky was saying. How many stadiums are we going to need? How many countries are going to be able to host something this big?
What I'm hearing over here is that there's a perception it might be a joint bid between the United States and Canada.
Well, there you go.
The likelihood will be that the final will take place in the United States on July the 4th, 2026, and that date is synonymous Independence Day.
Have you gone mad now? Have you finally gone mad?
Yeah. It'll be the 250th anniversary, July the 4th, 2026, World Cup final, Saturday afternoon. Would America be in it by then? What's that? 9 years' time, chance for the States to develop? So chance for a lot of teams to develop as well. But I'd be amazed if the final is not in the United States on July the 4th, 2026, which is a Saturday and is the date that's been earmarked for the final, and it would be the 250th anniversary of the independence.
But you see, it wouldn't surprise me if FIFA have worked all this out before announcing this ludicrous plan, because, it's a huge celebration, there's more money around, America's the richest country in the world, we can once again milk the competition for billions and billions of quid, which then is under the control of an organisation who have a history of being one of the most corrupt bunch of people.
So now you're having to go at FIFA.
Yes, I'm having to go at FIFA. Yeah.
I mean, so under what circumstances would you like them to run the World Cup? If you think that, you shouldn't want them to run anything. You're just all over the place now.
The original argument here, Mark, was that I see this as the death of international football. This is the start of the end for international football. When club players are getting £1 million a week, no club is going to be willing to let those players go to play meaningless qualifiers like England, Slovenia, or some load of rubbish like that. That's what's going to happen in the future.
Well, they might all be playing in China for £1 million a week. Maybe they'll have a World Cup over there.
Maybe.
I mean, you look at the States in 2026, and you look at the TV deals as well. There's a lot of countries, and over here, ESPN lost the rights to Fox, who bid more money than us. However, the problem, because Fox came in and they bid for 2018 in Russia and 2022, because it looks like Qatar in 22 is now going to be a Winter World Cup, it's going to go up against the NFL over here. Now, like it or loathe it, Porky, I know you're not a big fan. The problem for over here is that Fox are one of the rights holders for the NFL. So, to cut a long story short, they have been given the rights, along with a couple of other TV channels who have purchased the rights for 18 and 22. They have been given the rights for 26 for free. It's just been thrown in to the bundle that they didn't think they were going to get, but they now have. Yeah. So if it was a money-making exercise to that extent, and I get the fact that they want to do this because they want to raise more revenue, they wouldn't have handed the likes of Fox the 2026 World Cup for free.
Quite. Okay. And how about this? A Sunday League game is sometimes more exciting to watch than a Premier League game. Lots would love to watch something new, and that's from Joshua. And, you know, there's lots of people who have
But a Sunday League game, you normally go down, you have some interest in it. It's either your mates playing or it's a local game, it's on the playing field near to where you live.
Yeah, well, you have some interest in it if you come from a country where your country is being represented, right?
You don't rush home from the pub to say, I've got to watch Albania versus Romania tonight. Oh, I can't live without it. My life's not complete.
Well, I think you're being disingenuous to people who, quite enjoy watching sport, which they don't necessarily have a...
No, I'm sorry, I'm just being realistic.
No, you're not. You're just a typical xenophobic English football fan who only wants to support their own club, hates everybody else, only wants to support their own country, hates everybody else, and is constantly bitter and twisted because they never do very well.
And you've got your inclusive hat on because you think it makes you sound politically correct.
No, I'm not trying to be politically correct. I'm telling you what I think.
You don't appreciate the arguments because you didn't take them on board at the time, and you're a little bit embarrassed. Your arguments
are all spurious.
A little bit embarrassed.
Anyway, let's go back to Mark's. We've only got 30 seconds left. Mark, who's going to win the Super Bowl while we're at it, while we're annoying Mr. Parry?
I think it will be the New England Patriots will win the Super Bowl. I think Green Bay Packers will beat Dallas Cowboys this weekend.
Oh, thank God for that.
See, there's something else that he's completely disingenuous about. He thinks everybody who watches the NFL and who works in that business and who commentates on it is a plank.
No,
people are saying to me they're surprised that somebody hasn't killed him by now.
I have never said
Mark,
that.
thank you very much indeed. We've got to go. TalkSport, we are the two mics. Wow, what a great first hour that was. Great World Cup FIFA debate, says James. Porky's snobbish views, MG putting him in his place. However, not everybody agrees with that, of course. We've got a couple of other ones here. In his one from Don, who says, tell Porky only a third of his heart is top quality. Doesn't mean the other 2/3 are dispensable, which, of course, is something completely and utterly different from the football conversation we were having. And Scottish Bull says, Bag Camus plays for Congo and Villarreal, Balassi, Everton, Mbema, Newcastle, Macomi, Hull, Malumbu, Norwich. The list goes on and on. That's the Democratic Republic of Congo.
But I know these things.
Yes. You do indeed. Now, coming up at 2 o'clock, which we've just passed, is the beginning of the final statement of Barack Obama's as the sort of US president before he hands over the reins of power to Donald Trump, who still seems to be winding everybody up over the past sort of 24 hours since the Meryl Streep thing has disappeared, and since you mentioned that he's now going to be hiring his son-in-law. Right?
That's right. Yeah.
But the big political story of the day this week, or today rather, is Jeremy Corbyn, isn't it?
It is.
When he first started this morning saying that footballers, rock stars, and captains of industry should all have their wages capped. and he then spent the rest of the day backtracking.
Well, actually, mate, he didn't, because I saw the original interview. Now, Sarah Jane Mee on Sky, he came up and said, we're going to cap it. And what are you going to cap it at? He said, we haven't come up with that. I'm not going into specifics.
Right.
So then Sarah Jane Mee said, well, some footballs, earn more than £1 million a year.
And he hadn't thought of that.
No, he said, what? And then they went to some economist who said, well, the last time they tried to wage cap people in this country, there was a massive brain drain. Everybody went to America because they can earn more money there than they earn here. There's a danger of that happening. So then that's put to Mr. Corbyn. What about the brain drain? What? What brain drain? Then somebody in his ear from, his research unit or something must have said, go for 30 times national average wage. He said, 30 times national average wage is about £3.5 million a year. Anybody can live on that.
Yeah.
Now he's pointed out some footballers earn £10 million a year. Right. So they might leave and go somewhere else.
So he hadn't really been terribly well briefed.
I don't think it had been thought through terribly well, to be honest.
No. And then he started talking about immigration and how he wanted to make sure that he was going to be on side when the whole Brexit thing happened. Then he got a bit confused about that as well, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, he got confused because it's all about borders, freedom of movement over borders or no freedom of movement over borders. My recollection is that Mr. Corbyn started, in his political ascent to the top of the Labour Party some 2 years ago, expounding the view.
Is it that long now?
Yeah, it is, because it was before the last election, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Expounding the view that must have complete freedom of movement within Europe, and anybody can come here and anybody here can go anywhere else.
Yeah.
Didn't seem that clear today.
No, he didn't seem
Seemed
to
as
be
though
sure.
that, we've got to look at each individual position. So, as usual, the political landscape in this country is somewhat mixed.
It is rather mixed, yes, absolutely right. Now, we've got lots of other things to talk about, of
Certainly
course.
Have.
We've got to talk about John Terry, who may or may not be going to Bournemouth.
Yep.
We've got to talk about your man Schneiderlin, who's come in and played for Everton.
We hope so.
22 million quid, is it?
22, I'm told. Yeah, that's the reported figure. Absolutely.
We've got lots of stories on the back pages about all of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And of course, we've got Lord Coe to talk about as well. Lord Coe, who seems to think that he doesn't need to answer any more questions that the MPs are going to put to him, because he says that despite the fact that they say they have concerns over his lack of credibility, basically he said everything he's going to say.
Don't you think there's an awful lot of allegations of corruption in all sorts of sports at the moment?
Yes, there are.
I mean, athletics is riddled with it. Cycling is now riddled with it.
Tennis, I suppose you could say.
Tennis is under the spotlight.
Yeah. There's Maria Sharapova, in fact, coming back to play soon, isn't she?
Absolutely. The Olympics has always been mired in it. Motor racing, because guys changing teams today, Mercedes going back to Williams and all that, and allegations from
Jiggy pokery,
with old Ron, what's his name, talking about taking lawsuits out and all sorts of things. And you just wonder sometimes whether the amount of money which is now vested in sport, because so many sports are now billion-pound industries. What was who was it? Was it Shakespeare's famous quote? The root of all evil is money.
Yeah.
Or money is the root of all evil.
Yes.
What was it?
Yeah, I think it was money is the
root of all evil.
And the other one was absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely,
but it's the money that the power sort of begets, I think, that corrupts.
I once summed it up brilliantly, I was told that it was the finest definition, and that is that wherever you find vast amounts of money, corruption will follow. It's bound to.
Well, it does.
That's what happened at FIFA, and that's what happened at the International Olympics.
You have to be
situation.
Yeah, you have to be very. And the one thing I do agree with you about the World Cup, before we're not going to go back into it and go all over it, is that of course it's all about money. I mean, FIFA want to make more money from more countries, and which does not necessarily mean it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
But everything's now driven by that.
Of course
everything. The Premier League's driven by money. International football is driven by money.
It is.
Sponsorship of football shirts is driven by money.
Yes, I totally agree. Now listen, just to change the flavour a bit, because of course we have been in our profession for 35 years. The woman who landed the scoop of the 20th century has just died.
Yes, this is a woman who reported the start of the Second World War.
That's right, Claire Hollingworth, British foreign correspondent. She died at the age of 105. She was 3 days into her first journalism job when she landed what has been described as the scoop of the century.
Yeah.
She noticed, because she was working for the Daily Telegraph on the Polish border in August 1939, and she noticed Nazi tanks gathering in their hundreds at the German-Polish border. She sent this report back, and it was immediately interpreted by all intelligence agencies around the world as the forefront to an invasion. And at that moment, the British government had to make up their mind whether or not to declare war on Germany.
I read a story today in one of the obituaries that she actually also had to hold the telephone that she had in her hand out the window so that they could hear the tanks rolling down the street.
Yeah, before they
didn't believe
her. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that was the British Embassy, I think, that were taking that view.
It was incredible. It says here, her front page report, which ran without a byline, and just to explain to our millions of listeners out there, a byline is when the story says the headline and then by Mike Parry or by Mike Graham, right?
And sometimes get bandited, as is another phrase that we sometimes use for when somebody writes a story.
Yeah,
they send it into the London office,
they do.
And then somebody in London rewrites it, or sometimes doesn't even bother.
That's right.
And just puts their name on it.
Puts their name on it, and that causes great grief in our profession. But anyway, it says... Right, here we go. Ran without a byline was headlined 1,000 tanks massed on Polish border. Imagine seeing 1,000 tanks, by the way. 10 divisions reported ready for swift strike. She broke the news at the start of the Second World War. It was also it also heralded the beginning of an extraordinary career in which she reported on many of the biggest stories of the 20th century. Her death was confirmed in a short family statement on the Facebook page titled Celebrate Claire Hollingworth. It read, "We are sad to announce that after an illustrious career spanning a century of news, celebrated war correspondent Claire Hollingworth died this evening at her home in Hong Kong."
Yeah, and she stayed in Asia, didn't she, after she retired?
That's right, yeah.
And a fascinating career and a fascinating woman, and lots of tributes being paid to her from people who knew her. I didn't know her. A lot of people were asking us on Twitter, you and I, if we ever met her. I don't know if you ever met her, did you?
No, I didn't know.
Because she certainly covered Vietnam War.
That's right, yeah.
She covered all sorts of wars around the world. And
she did.
Her quote was, she didn't have any children of her own. I think she had a stepdaughter.
Yeah.
Didn't have any children of her own. She said, she just liked covering wars.
Yeah, that's right.
She said, I know people might find it strange, but I actually enjoy it.
Yeah, well, what a terrific woman. On the byline bandit situation, by the way.
Yes.
It's incredible. We all, Max Hastings, obviously.
I do, yes. Now, well, another man famous for his war correspondency in the Falklands.
Well, I tell you what, Max Hastings, what a distinguished career he had. He was a military historian, really, and then journalist as well.
Yeah.
But he, I think for the Falklands War, because I had just arrived at the Express in London, Max Hastings was the very celebrated war correspondent of the London Evening Standard. Yeah, that's right. Who in those days was
was he their war correspondent, or did they choose to send him there and then he suddenly became that?
I'm not sure which came first, but nevertheless, he went to the Falklands as the representative of the London Evening Standard, and he was a very distinguished war reporter and historian. I mean, he's written loads of books on politics and wars over the years, and as an acknowledged expert. But the great thing was, the boys that we sent, one of them was Bob McGowan.
Yes,
Bob,
he used to be known as the Olympic Flame.
Yeah, Bob was
because he never went out.
Well, that was later. that was later in his career when we gave him the patch of Kent and the southeast of England to cover.
But he never went anywhere.
He never went anywhere. He did
left the house.
He did what all district reporters do. He lived in a farmhouse and he had a Land Rover outside, which got him to the pub and back occasionally. But actually, everybody filed to him. All local correspondents gave it to him, and he sent it up to town.
And he got the London office to pay them.
That's right. Yeah, and that's why he was in the Flame. But anyway, before that, he was very active in London, Bob, and what happened was he was dispatched to the Falklands, and they went on the Canberra, and they witnessed all this infighting between the Marines and the paratroopers, because these guys are so wound up that if they can't fight the enemy, they fight each other and all that kind of stuff. But the man they all wanted to kill when they came back, because Bob McGowan was our correspondent, and I can't remember who was the Mail and Telegraph and all that, but the man they wanted to kill was Max Hastings.
Yes.
And this was because Max Hastings' father, I think, had been a brigadier or something like that in the army. He had a tremendous sort of family history. But he also, I think, was in the reservists,
Yes, I think he was.
And he also had great contacts
which gave him a sort of an edge, didn't it?
Well, it gave him more than an edge, because it gave him helicopter sort of taxi opportunities to fly between, the Canberra, the aircraft carriers, other ships, and the mainland and the Falkland Islands itself.
Yeah.
So Max did what we all do. It was a pooling situation because facilities were so short on getting stuff back to London. It's not like today when you've got satellite telephones and all that. In those days, it was very restricted. So we had a pool situation. So everything was pooled. As Max had availability of helicopters to fly him about, he volunteered to I'll take it, chaps. Right. And the allegation is, and I'm sure that this has no basis whatsoever in truth.
Of course not, which is why you're about to tell us.
Is that Max seemed to get a lot more bylines out of the Falkland Islands than any other reporter and that as he was in charge of the pooling arrangements for a lot of the time, he may well have taken advantage of that situation. I have no idea whether that would be...
you'd never do such a thing,
Never do such a thing.
Funnily enough, I've got another story to tell, but we're out of time because time is of the essence. We're going to be talking Chilean UFOs coming up in a bit. We'll talk some more about byline banditry, though, and I'm going to read out a few tweets to you as well. At the 2 Mikes, his Twitter address, at Mike Parry 8, at IROMG. This is TalkSport.
Hey! The sun goes down like a bad dream. You end up tight, gotta let off steam. They say they can break you again and again. If life is a radio, turn up to 10. These are crazy, 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 crazy nights. These are crazy.
This is TalkSport. We are the 2 Mikes. Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on. We're going to be talking to a UFO expert as well. A couple of tweets for you, Mr. Parry. One from Becky down in New Zealand. If money is the root of all evil, why is Mike Parry's main role in life to acquire as much as he can?
You see, that's a misnomer. That's another gerrymandered fact and piece of information which you have perpetuated.
Not at all. Did you or did you not last week say you quite enjoy counting money?
Well, I do.
Well, so...
Gives me a sense of security.
Yeah, so you did say that. Those words did come from your mouth.
And I've made provisions in my life to try and retain a certain level of security, through possession of monetary things like money.
Monetary things like money.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. and for that reason, I make no apologies for it. What's the problem?
Not a problem at all.
What's the problem?
Here's one from Neil, right?
Yes.
This is great. This is a guy who sent this in to TalkSport. No idea why anyone bothers with TalkSport. It's tabloid radio at its worst, classless, cheap and tacky.
Really?
Lazy, amateurish journalism at best.
Is that right?
Thanks for listening, Neil.
Yeah, who's that? Neil?
Yeah, Neil, yeah.
Neil, keep listening, mate, and then you can criticise more and more as it gets you more and more irritated. But I mean, if you want to...
how do you think we feel? We have to work here.
Exactly.
It's an absolute nightmare.
Right. Absolutely right,
we have to be deliberately classless, cheap and tacky and lazy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's terrible, isn't it?
It's not easy, that.
Yeah, it's not. Now then, there's one here. It says, stop being a football snob, Porky. You've lost the plot. What's wrong with more countries enjoying the World Cup? Well, we've had that argument, mate, and I think you'll find that it was sort of came out a little bit on top there.
I don't know. I mean, I think we'll probably be arguing about it for the next 5 or 10 years before the thing happens. But I'll tell you the story about byline banditry, though, which is far more interesting. You may remember in one of our early shows, actually, that we did, one of our early live shows, I've managed to find a very rare thing, which is a copy of the front page of the Daily Express with a story on it with both your name and my name on it.
Was that from the war in the Balkans?
It was during the Bosnian War, yeah. In fact, there were 3 bylines on the story because there were 3 people who had contributed to it. There was Mike Parry in Washington.
That's right, I remember that.
There was John Craig in London, who now works for Sky, who is the political editor.
He's the chief political editor, that's right.
And there was me. And I was actually...
chief political correspondent. Beg your pardon. Yeah, go on.
And it was me, and I was actually on the ground in the war zone. I was
you were dodging the bombs,
Yeah, I was in Vitez, And the story was actually mine, and there had been a bit of what can be described as, Whitehall flimflammery stuck on the top of it by John Craig.
Yes.
But you, for some reason in your wisdom, had found some rubbish to write in about Bill Clinton. Because you'd had a sniff of the fact that this was going to be the splash.
I'd got the Whitehall view.
John Craig had got the Whitehall view.
Sorry, the White House view. I'm sorry. I got the White House view. Yeah,
but bizarrely, the White House view, as quoted by you, was from a so-called White House insider.
Yes, that's right,
who said something about how Clinton was going to fly some, fighter jets over Bosnia, or some nonsense. Anyway, bizarrely, the whole story appeared, more or less as I'd written it, except for about 2 paragraphs, and the bylines were in order by Mike Parry, US editor in Washington.
Oh, well, you see, that's me.
And John Craig in London.
Yeah.
And Mike Graham in Vitez, Bosnia.
Yeah, sorry about that,
And I was
mate,
the one, whose life was in danger. I was the one who'd got the story. And because I wasn't physically in London or America, I wasn't able to control which way the names went.
Well, you see, the way that would have worked is that as soon as I knew it was going on...
I know exactly how it would have worked.
I'd have got round to the Washington Press Club where our...
Ross Mark would have been lying on the floor.
Ross Mark, who had been sort of pensioned off 10 years earlier because he'd sort of got a bit too sort of thirsty for the job, would literally, you're quite right, he would be in a corner of the Washington Press Club. But slumped. But I'd go there for advice on what was going to happen next, and he always had it, because, people people in the Clinton camp used to drift in and out the press club all the time, and they just talked to him and all that kind of stuff.
And also, the thing about doing that job as well was that you read everything, you saw all the shows you needed to see, and so you were very well informed.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was good. Talking about...
well, I was hoping you might apologise for that.
Oh, I'm not going to apologise because I think you'll find that a byline from, Mike Parry, US editor in Washington, D.C., holds a bit more clout than a mere reporter on the road, you know what I mean? A mere foot soldier.
Right. Talking about the White House, as I was telling you that it was Barack Obama's final speech tonight. He's actually making it as we speak. And I think we're going to be able to listen to a little bit of it as he's making it. Yeah.
How fascinating.
For every 2 steps forward, it often feels we take 1 step back. But the long sweep of America has been defined by forward motion, a constant widening of our founding creed to embrace all, and not just some.
It's going to be one of those kind of speeches where he says a lot of platitudes and a lot of things about what America should be and how great America is. And, they were shouting 4 more years, apparently, when he got up.
Yeah.
Which, of course, he can't have because he's already had 8 years.
Exactly. My own view is that Mr. Obama, President Obama, did very little to put his name on the political map in the history of the development of the United States of America.
Well, even by his own admission, the one thing that he wishes he'd done more about was the whole problem with the gun laws, because there have been more mass shootings in America during Obama's reign than there have been at any other time.
But he doesn't seem to do anything about anything. At first, he was applauded for taking a backward step on foreign policy. Yeah. People said he can't look west, he's got to look east because of the expansion of China and, Japan and all that kind of stuff. But he didn't actually do anything there either.
No.
He just actually didn't do anything. And the other thing is, if you study the history of the man, he was very instrumental in freeing up money for people who had low incomes in order to allow them to try and start buying their own houses, their own properties.
Well, he did introduce Obamacare, which Trump is now going to completely...
That was when he was president. I was talking about when he was a senator, when he was senator from Chicago.
Well, that was more than 8 years ago.
Of course it was, yeah. It was. This was about 16 years ago, and he stood up in the, in the Senate and said, we've got to allow people on low incomes to have the same ability to invest in this country as anybody else. And all of a sudden, a political movement was underway to allow people to borrow lots of money to buy their own homes.
Yeah.
But they couldn't afford the money, and that led to the first housing crisis.
Well, one of the problems
Remember
was
Fannie Mae and the other one, those two building societies in America that collapsed?
Yeah, that's right. Well, Fannie Mae was a sort of a bond of some kind.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Well, what happened was the men would literally, salesmen were driving up and down streets in some of the poorest states, like Arkansas, Mississippi and Alabama, and saying to people sitting on their front porches, is this your home? Yeah, do you live here? No, I rent it. Okay, would you like to borrow $120,000 to buy it? Oh, thanks very much.
Yeah.
But they had no ability to pay it back.
But these were all the banks that were giving them the money.
Of course they were. Yeah.
So they were quite complicit in it as well. I remember watching when I was over there one time, watching a documentary about this, and there was a bus driver, a woman who lived in Maryland, bus driver in Washington DC. She lived in a house that was worth $650,000.
That's right. Yeah.
And of course,
somebody lent her the money to buy it. Yeah. She had no ability to pay it back.
She had a mortgage of something like $649,000. And she made $40,000 a year.
Yeah, that's right.
And they were like, "Do you think you'll ever pay this off?" She went, "No, I don't need to pay it off because in 10 years' time, I'm going to sell it for $1 million."
That's right. Yeah.
And of course, that's what they thought.
Exactly.
But in the end, it never became worth $1 million.
It just...
In fact, it was worth $400,000.
And you look at the purists, the political analysts, and they say that all started when Obama put his backed this crazy scheme, and it reverberated around the globe.
Now, a couple of people have given us corrections on the money quote, right? One is from the Bible, according to some people.
Oh, yeah.
Andrew says this: it is, "For the love of money is a root of all sorts of evil."
Yes,
not money itself. Apparently, that's the quote from the Bible.
Oh, yeah, but who said it in the Bible?
Jesus.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently.
Did he say it when he was having a go at the moneylenders in the temple?
Well, he may have done.
Because
I've only got a tweet here. I haven't got a copy of the Bible in front of me.
No, but although I'm a Christian, I thought...
Are you?
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah.
Is that how you categorise yourself?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. I thought Jesus got it wrong with the moneylenders, because without moneylenders, you wouldn't be able to raise a mortgage. We've just been talking about people who took on mortgages they couldn't repay.
Yes.
But what the money
there are
lenders...
certain ways that money lenders shouldn't operate, though, which I think
No. The money lenders in the Temple, I think he got a bit upset that they were mixing business with...
with service.
Not service, but I mean with, what you call it when you follow a religion?
Worship.
Worship, that's it, worship. Yeah. Worship, that's the word, yeah.
Well, you should know that, being a good Christian.
Yeah. So,
by the way, do you know what plough service is?
What?
Plough service.
Plough service? Is this something agricultural?
Well, I think so. I was driving around Sussex at the weekend.
Yeah.
And every sort of rural part that I came to, there was a sign, like a handwritten sign that farmers write.
Yeah.
And it said plough service. Now, what I didn't know, apparently it's plough week this week.
Right.
Which started on Sunday.
So what do you do?
Monday.
You hire a tractor to plough your field or something?
Well, I don't know. I don't know whether it's where you take your plough to get serviced, or whether, in fact, it's a sort of service like a like a worship of some kind of the plough. Because it's a sort of, one of these things that people do in the countryside.
It's not Harvest Festival time, is it?
No, it's the wrong time of year for that.
What time is that?
But that's more like sort of late summer.
Is it?
But this is more about the start of the agricultural season.
I see.
So I don't know. I thought you might know what plough service was.
Is it? I plough the fields and scatter the good seed on the ground.
Well, there is also another...
That's a song I remember from school.
There is another possible meaning to it, which I'm not going to go into.
Yeah.
Mark says this, Porky's White House Insider, more like Ale House Insider.
Yeah, he was actually, yeah. He was very much like that. In fact, one night...
At the time, by the way.
And by the way, he was a great guy, Ross. I mean, he'd been around for years. He did Vietnam as well.
Yeah.
And in fact, he told me once about going down to Texas, good old boys, and having a lunch with Lyndon Baines Johnson. And he thought he was a really crude man, because he was sitting there with a load of other correspondents and old LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson. Lady Bird was Lyndon Baines Johnson's wife, Lady Benson. Yeah. And she came into the room and said, "Hello, gentlemen. Hello, gentlemen. It's really great to have you in our home. Thank you very much indeed for coming to see us." And then she turned around and went out. And as she went out, Lyndon Baines Johnson said to all these correspondents, "Gentlemen, you've just seen the finest piece of ass in Texas."
What, about his wife?
About his wife.
Really?
That's the way the President of the United States of America talked about his wife, Lady Bird Johnson.
Well, it was a long time ago.
It was.
We've got to talk to a man called Rob Simone coming up next, though. There's some Chilean UFO activity that we need to get talking about. This is Talk Sport.
Hey, Mr. Spaceman, won't you please take me along? I won't do anything wrong. Hey, Mr. Spaceman, won't you please take me along for a ride? Woke up this morning.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Ask Porky coming up in the next hour or so. Right now, though, we're going to delve into the mysterious world of unidentified flying objects once again. I mean, listening to Barack Obama's speech, you might say there's enough drama going on the Earth at the moment as Mr. Trump appears to be ready to take over the reins of power.
Yep.
But let's talk to Rob Simone, our good friend, who is, of course, a paranormal expert, man who knows about these things, and he's going to tell us what's been going on in Chile. Rob, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, chaps.
Very welcome to the show once again.
Thank you very much.
Now, this UFO video, which we've been looking at here, mystery object flying towards a Navy helicopter, happened 2 years ago, but they've been investigating it for 2 years, and they don't actually know any more than they did 2 years ago, it would seem.
Yeah, this is an amazing story because, first of all, it comes from an official source, Chile, and they had the really expensive military gear and cameras pointing at this thing, got all kinds of footage, sat on it for 2 years, scratched their heads, and finally said, "We give up." That's huge.
Well, it would seem so, yeah.
And, yeah. Now, when I started looking into this, I was really floored because this actually has happened before, a very similar kind of event, and it's something that's in my latest book. But the last time it happened goes back to October 29th, 1954.
Tell us about this particular incident and how they've been investigating it, though, because what they seem to be saying, strangely, is that they don't know what it was, but they also said we do not know what it was not, which is a bit cryptic, really, isn't it?
So there's nothing in the known aviation encyclopedia that this craft belongs to, as far as they know. And I'm sure they probably reached out to other governments. Moreover, it was sitting up there It was knocking about, and then all of a sudden it releases this plume of gas, this dark-colored gas into the air. Really bizarre. You can see the video in the Daily Mail. Mm-hmm. And so not only they can't figure out what this craft was, where it came from, they don't know what this thing was shooting out into the sky.
Now, this is all very strange, Rob, but I've been to Chile, and I've been in a cave in the Atacama Desert where they have the original hieroglyphics of what looked like spacemen, which were scrawled on the walls there like 2,000 and 3,000 years ago. So is Chile a well-known location for these bizarre phenomena?
Well, that's an excellent question. And I have to say, it actually does sort of rank relatively high in the sort of paranormal UFO, gestalt. But I have to bring everyone's attention back to what happened back in 1954 in Italy, of all places. Yeah. Now, this is a news story that was lost in time. But I have this book. It's called UFOs in the Headlines, and it's all newspaper articles from the 50s about UFOs. Yeah. So 1954, there was a football game going on, believe it or not, and it was held up for 30 minutes because the 1,500 fans in attendance, including the players, looked up and saw a UFO parked over the stadium.
Where was this?
I remember this story. Yeah, I remember we talked about this in the past.
Yeah, okay. And which was this in Italy?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And do we know which part of Italy it was, Rob?
Absolutely. This was in Florence, Italy, October 28th.
Right, okay.
I think there's a picture, isn't there? There's a picture of them all standing around on the pitch, sort of looking upwards.
Yeah, there might be. It was between Fiorentina and Pistiose League teams, and they got so excited, they stopped the game. Eyewitnesses looked up, saw this bright silver in color UFO at a very high altitude, and then it began to extrude a wispy tail. I'm reading right from the newspaper article. A mysterious wispy tail, like a spider's web, and it drifted on the ground and was picked up in bundles by the passersby.
Picked up by.
So here we have another.
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, this thing shot out this strange substance, very much like the Chilean UFO, and people were going down on the field and grabbing it, and who knows, taking it home, making sweaters out of it. I don't know. I know if Jerry Corbyn was the manager, they'd all probably dock their pay.
Very much so, yeah. I was going to ask you, actually, given the political landscape these days, I mean, I haven't seen anything from the Americans on this Chilean escapade, so we don't know what their view is. But what's the view on the Trump administration and how they're going to be with the aliens and the world outside? Because remember, Ronald Reagan was very keen on it all.
Yeah, no, I think Trump might be open to a little bit of the UFO. I mean, he loves Alex Jones. He loves conspiracy. I'm sure that if Alex Jones starts putting out something, or other researchers, I think he might tweet it.
But Alex, he might well do that. But I mean, Alex Jones is more likely to say that it's being run by the CIA, isn't he? He's not going to say it's actually a proper alien craft.
Yeah, fair dues. But here's this story gets even better, because one of the people there brought this mysterious spiderweb substance that came out of this UFO to Professor Giovanni Cameri, who is the director of Chemical Institute in Milan University. And he actually tested this fiber-like structure substance. And he treated it with heat and other things, and he says that the ashes contain a quantity of boron, silicon, calcium, and magnesium. So this is one of these events that actually was seen all the way through the testing, but it was lost through the sands of time. So is this going to happen every 70, 80 years? I don't know.
But hang on, Rob. On the substances that the professor identified, well known to Earthlings, it's not like he suddenly said, crikey, this is some new product I've never seen before. It's a mixture of plastic and metal and aluminium, and we don't have anything like this on Earth.
I would bet, though, he didn't have the equipment to really do the kind of testing that we could today.
So it could have been something we don't know about before. We didn't know about before.
Yeah, and this is in the 50s. This is before, Photoshop. This was before fakery. This was before any of that.
Okay.
So I count this.
So what do you think, Rob? Have you seen this Chilean video? What do you make of it? What do you think it is?
I think we're just sort of these little sort of experiment. And I think that this kind of, like you say, the Anaconda Desert and all these little clues all around the world suggest that there is life out there, and it's been messing around with us for as long as we've been walking around.
Yeah, it may well be true.
Yeah, it may well not be true because we've never seen one.
You take the Chilean view now. This is now the official view.
Yeah.
We don't know what it is, and we don't know what it's not.
Yeah,
we just keep saying that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a mystery. That's the thing. That's why they're called unidentified flying objects, because we can't figure out what they are.
Absolutely right. Rob, thank you
thanks very much
Rob
indeed.
Simone there, paranormal expert. If you have a chance to look at this piece of video,
you're right,
it's knocking around on YouTube.
I mean, Rob is an expert in his own right, but he also sounds like an amazed schoolboy.
Well, I mean, you have to have your eyes open.
Hey, 2 years ago now, in 1954 over Palermo in Italy.
It was a Fiorentina's game, actually. It was over Florence.
Fiorentina, yeah. Well, but I like people who sound excited about their job or their interest in life or things they can't understand. You know what I mean?
Well, because nobody can explain this stuff, and so his view of it is no less valid than anybody else's.
I think he was shocked to learn that I'd been in a cave where I'd seen the hieroglyphics from 2,000 years ago.
I think he's shocked to learn that you got out of the cave.
He called that an excellent point.
An excellent question.
Excellent question.
Excellent question.
But he didn't answer it, unfortunately, because nobody can. Where did they come from? We don't know.
That Chilean wine must be strong stuff, or did the Chilean Air Force drink that Indian whiskey?
Chilean Red is a fantastic wine, by the way. I drink a lot of that.
Do you?
When I can.
I didn't think you drank red wine.
Well, if I do, I like Chilean. I like Chilean Red, yeah.
The Chilean whites are quite good as well.
Chilean whites.
A couple of nice Sauvignon Blanc. I'll tell you something that isn't made up and is not sort of in any way open to interpretation.
Yes.
I'm just looking at this story here.
Yes.
You bet you didn't know this. A massive chunk of Hawaii has just fallen into the ocean.
A massive chunk of Hawaii?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where's it fallen into?
It's fallen into the ocean.
The ocean, yeah. Okay.
26 acres of the island.
That's not much.
26 acres?
Yeah.
Well, do you own more than 26 acres?
No, of course I don't.
26 acres is quite a long... If you had to walk around the circumference of a 26-acre plot, that would take quite a long time.
It's about the size of a big sports field, 26 acres, okay?
It's quite a big space.
Yeah, that's not bad. But, I mean, to fall off the edge of an island the size of Hawaii, I mean,
it just doesn't bother you at all?
Bits of land like that disappear off the edge of Australia every day, to be honest.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm certain.
Well, if 26 acres of land fell away from Australia every day, surely after a couple of hundred years it wouldn't exist anymore.
There's so much of it.
So you think you're slightly exaggerating?
I'm not exaggerating, because the problem is these are all scare stories. It's like, 26 acres has just dropped off Hawaii.
No, hang on, excuse me.
Yeah.
You are the guy who puts out a scare story at least once a day.
No, I don't.
In which you have said things like, birds will fall on your head if the temperatures go below freezing. Yeah. In which you have said that there will be no more chocolate in the world. In which you have said that there will be no more peanuts in the world.
Well, all these things
scare stories.
All these things can happen in the future.
Stories, yeah, but these are all things that never happened.
There'll be no more blinking food in the world.
I'm telling you about a piece of an island which has fallen into the sea, and you don't seem to care.
Well, the reason why is
if you had one of your houses on it.
No, there's a logical explanation for this. What happens is that bits of islands do fall into the sea.
Yes, it's part
but
of
you know what
lava
happens,
delta.
don't you? What happens is that the waves and the tide pick up the bits that have fallen into the sea, and they whip them around to the other side of the island, and they deposit them as shale and silt, and they that land is reclaimed from the sea.
Really?
All they're really doing is moving bits of the island from one side of the island to the other.
All right.
It happens on the Isle of Wight all the time.
I'll tell you what, when was the last time the Isle of Wight had a bit of it chucked off one side and it came back on the other?
It happens all the time. That's why the needles are what they are. The needles used to, in fact, be a part of the Isle of Wight.
They're made of chalk.
They're
made of chalk.
And then they collapse and they're whipped round and they end up being a beach on the other side of the island.
Where's the chalk beach then?
Chalk Beach would be somewhere near Cows.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll keep a look out for that.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport.
It's a wonderful night, gotta take it from me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, you gotta shake it for me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, everybody can see.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Coming up in the next hour, it's time for Ask Porky. We've got lots of really, really good questions this week, Mr. Parry.
Oh, so, good, okay.
Prepare yourself to be of as much help as you possibly can to people.
Yep.
Meanwhile, though, of course, if you try and get one in that's so good that we can't resist reading it out, then by all means tweet it at the two mics, at Mike Parry 8, at IROMG. President Obama is still going, by the way. He's been talking now for approximately 45 minutes. And we're not going to bring you any more of it because it's all a bit sort of samey. samey, really.
I totally agree.
Def says this, I could have taken a better video on my phone. The Chilean military still use 1940s camcorders, 250 grand helicopters and a £2 camera.
Yeah, I'm sure that's possibly right. But we've got a lot to be grateful to the Chileans for, because during the Falklands War, when they had a dictator called Pinochet, he so hated Argentina, which also they share a very long border in South America.
Well, he came to live in Wentworth for a while, didn't he?
He did, yeah. But he so hated the Argentinians that when our Secret Service people said, can we land our helicopters in Chile and get across the border into it, he said, yeah, fine, no problem. So we have to be quite grateful to them.
Yes.
I think it's a nice country, Chile, because as I say, I've been there. Santiago's their big capital.
Yeah.
But when I was there, I've only been there once, and it was about 20 years ago, but I went into the Crown Plaza Hotel, and I was talking to one of the girls, at the counter.
The Crown, you went all the way to Chile and stayed at Crown Plaza.
It was a big hotel, believe me, in those days. You know what I mean?
It was,
yeah,
but when you wanted to stay in a more sort of local chain.
No, what I mean is, Santiago's not as developed as Europe, and this was a brand new Crown Plaza Hotel, and it was a big thing, you know. And
but that's where you stay in Liverpool, isn't it, the Crown Plaza?
Yeah, I do, actually, on the dock.
So there's nothing like loyalty to a brand.
Well, that's absolutely right. But I saw one of the girls, they're lovely girls, they're beautiful-looking people in Chile and Argentina, yeah. And I said, how's
Do you have any liaisons you wish to reveal to us?
Not that I want to talk about, thank you, no.
Local girls?
Well, I don't want to get into that. This is a serious story. And I said, how's the economy doing? She said, it is going very much better under the general, I said,
Sounds like Padre Parry.
Yeah, Padre Parry. And I said, great. I said, because you had a big problem with inflation, didn't you? She said, yes, it is okay now. I said, that's good. What is it now? She said, it is about 30%.
30%? Great.
And I said, well, I suppose that's not too bad, because I read somewhere that it got up to about 300%.
Yeah.
She said, yes, because 30% is a month. I mean, they still had a huge inflation problem.
Actually, funnily enough, talking of Corbyn, and I was reading some stuff from the Institute of Economic Affairs, where there's only two other countries where they put a cap on wages.
One was Cuba.
One was Cuba, and the other was Venezuela.
Exactly, and both the economies collapsed.
Both of them completely and utterly collapsed.
Yeah.
Here's one from
By the way, sorry, just in Corbyn, do you see him when he walks around today with that John Lennon hat on?
Yeah.
What does he look like?
I know, not John Lennon.
What does he look like?
Well, he looks like a guy that used to be a backbencher on the Labour Party who you would expect to dress like that, but who's now in the front line and doesn't quite know what he's doing.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Now, how about this from Albus? Porky the Geologist, bring back time team. Phil Hardy would love you, Porky.
Yeah, I'm sure he would. Now, listen, something I want to talk to you about here, and, being the world's biggest sports radio station, the Jockey Club have sent out shockwaves by telling people Kempton's going to be closed down.
Well, it's an incredible story, this. It's right on the front page, a massive headline on the front page of the Racing Post. Kempton bombshell, caused to be bulldozed and floodlit all-weather track set for Newmarket. They seem to be enjoying this idea of all-weather tracks, don't they?
I mean, it's quite amazing, this, isn't it? Because the racing industry in this country struggles. Without the betting industry, it wouldn't exist.
Right.
We all know that, you know, and that's why betting is such a...
well, I've never quite understood...
Such a significant part of the whole industry.
Well, also, I've never understood the bit about when you go to the Middle East, right, where they have quite a few races
and
now.
they don't have any betting.
And you can't bet.
No, I know.
And I mean, I know that horse racing is the sport of kings, supposedly, and it's quite good fun to stand. Yeah. But I think if you go to Dubai... you can't have a drink either.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, these days with mobile phones...
You can't have a bet or a drink.
But if you're standing in Dubai, and you will have, presumably, an international website access to...
Really?
To betting sites.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Of course you will.
I haven't been to a race in Dubai.
Of course you will. Yes, I have, actually. I went a camel race, actually.
Camel racing?
Camel racing in Dubai,
Well, that's not the same, is it? I'm talking about like thoroughbred racing.
Yeah, but thoroughbred racing, I mean, surely, you know, people there will say, this horse is going to win and all that, and they just get onto the computer and they've got an online betting service, which is worldwide. So I don't see it. But anyway, the point I'm going to make is, Kempton I know quite well. Yeah. Because, my old mate, Johnny Jinks, who was the news editor of the Express.
Yes.
Now, he lived
Who's
down...
now in a home for ageing journalists, right?
I last heard he was trying to get into one, but whether or not they'd accept him, I'm not sure.
Why haven't you been in touch with him over Christmas?
Well, because,
I mean, he might be on his own, lonely.
No, he's got family and all that sort of stuff, and he led a pretty disgraceful life, so I didn't feel it was necessary to rescue him at Christmas, to be honest. But, no, point is, he lived down in a place called East Molesey.
Yeah.
Now, East Molesey, the house he lived in, was built on the site of a former racetrack.
Right.
And I think it was called Hurst Park.
Hurst Park? Okay.
Yeah, and the point is, to get there, you go to Hampton Palace, Hampton Court Palace, sorry, yeah. You go over the bridge, you turn left, and you go down the road next to the river. And that's where this Hurst Park was.
Right.
That was knocked down. His house was built on there. But keep going down that road, and you come to Kempton.
Okay.
So,
I don't think I've been there.
And so the two tracks were probably only 3 or 4 miles apart, right?
Yeah.
So now they're talking about closing Kempton and building more houses on there. It's a very exclusive part of the world, by the way, in terms of real estate.
Oh, it is.
But Sandown, which is another great track, which is in Esher,
yes.
And Esher is literally one of the top addresses in this country. It's where the Bee Gees had homes, and it's where a lot of Chelsea footballers live, right? Very, very wealthy property. Very expensive property, sorry. Very wealthy area. That's where the other one is, Sandown, which will now take on some of the responsibilities from Kempton, which is 5 miles away.
But isn't the reason Kempton's being knocked down is that they want to use the space for development of flat blocks of flats, houses, and all that kind of thing?
As I said, Mike, it is a very prosperous part of the world, and to have huge acres of land largely unused for most of the year, which is what happens at a racetrack.
Right.
Because even when the horses are racing, they're only running around the track. All the stuff in the middle, all the fields around it, and all that. And really not used very, very much at all. You've got to say, eventually somebody's going to come along and make them an offer they can't refuse.
And that's what's happened.
Now, it looks as though they're going to be...
the Jockey Club own all of these tracks?
Jockey Club are a huge landowner. They own so much land in Newmarket, which is HQ, the headquarters of racing. They own tracks and estates all over the country. And apparently, what seems to have happened is somebody's come along and said, well, we think this block of land is worth 500 million quid.
Yeah.
So the Jockey Club has said, allegedly, according to this story, we'll take that and we'll put that into racing elsewhere.
Right.
And they're thinking of expanding Sandown for some of the prize races, like the old King George VI Chase, which happens, doesn't it, I think, on Boxing Day every year.
Yeah.
And starting, apparently, a new all-weather track or floodlit track or something at Newmarket, which will take on some of the other races.
But does that mean that, therefore, they can use Newmarket for more of the year than they currently do? That's the whole point.
I think
of
so,
an all-weather track.
Yeah.
But then if they've got an all-weather track, that won't suit every single trainer, will it? Because, I mean, one of the quotes they've got in here in the Racing Post from Nicky Henderson, leading jumps trainer, he says basically that he's horrified without a track like Kempton. It says the idea of jump racing without a track like Kempton scares me to death.
Yes.
And calls on all defenders of national hunt racing to fight to save the venue.
Absolutely. I don't quite know what he means by that because I don't know as much about the sport, obviously, as a top trainer like Nicky Henderson. When he says frightens me to death, whether or not he means it's a great facility, Kempton, without it, the actual sport of national hunt racing, which is sort of epitomised by Cheltenham, will die a death or not. I don't know.
Well, presumably he means that it's one less venue for them to go to.
Yeah, that's exactly what he means, and it's a top venue as well.
And will that then mean that they have fewer events?
Well, I suppose it will.
The only place, Lingfield's not terribly far from
No,
that.
it's not.
That's the one I used to go to, because, you'll remember this from your days working in Fleet Street.
Yes.
Quite often we would, if we had a day out, for example, you could work in the morning and shoot off down to Lingfield in the afternoon.
Get the train down to Lingfield, and the station is actually on the edge of the track, and then you just get off the train and walk into the track.
And there's a golf course sort of in and around the racecourse, I think.
There is. And in fact, last time I took Johnny to Lingfield, and he was getting on a bit then. We got down there on the train, but by the end of the day, he was so bladderated, I had to get a car to take him home.
What was this, before or after the racing?
That was after the racing. That was after the racing. Yeah. He couldn't take it like he used to.
It's not good. Well, no. I suppose if we go visiting Cheltenham this year, we may be in a similar state.
Do you know, I've had a couple of offers from people to join them in their boxes at Cheltenham this year.
Really?
So you may have to behave yourself a little bit better than you did last time we were there.
I've always behaved impeccably well. You were the one.
Andy.
I think you'll find you're the one who was recorded doing the Fool's panel. And lots of people were asking for it to be repeated because they couldn't believe how blooderated you actually sounded.
No.
Because we'd only been on the air half an hour earlier and you sounded fine.
No.
Half an hour later you went on and you sounded as if you'd had 4 bottles of whiskey poured down your throat.
No. What happened is I'd had a massive win in between time, and that was sheer ebullience and joy at
sheer ebullience,
being able to throw money around in the box that afternoon.
Remember you got thrown out of the enclosure that you shouldn't have been in. When we were walking out, as we were walking out, there was a place where I wanted to take a picture just by the ring.
Oh, really?
Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
And there was loads and loads, about 4 deep. People 4 deep.
Really?
And I just wanted to take a picture of you by one of the horses.
Yes.
And I noticed that there was, next to it, there was a very nice kind of space. And so I said, why don't you just nip under that little white fence?
Right.
And I'll take your picture there.
Yeah.
And it turned out it was a handicapped enclosure. which we weren't supposed to be in.
Really?
And this woman came over and said, "You're not supposed to be in here." I said, "I'm terribly sorry, I'm just taking a picture. You shouldn't be here." She got very upset.
Really?
And we were very apologetic.
And she threw us out again?
Well, we didn't have to throw us out.
No,
We were only there for like 2
exactly.
minutes.
I would love to try and get up to the Grand National this year as well.
Would you?
I love Aintree. I think it's just
it's a bit too close for Easter to me.
Well, it's such a wonderful event, honestly. It's a wonderful day out. And I love going on Ladies' Day as well, which is usually the Friday, because all the Northwest ladies come along. And then, of course,
Northwest ladies.
Yes, snobby London-based newspapers take pictures and say, "Oh, look at them all.
Well,
they're
to be
all
fair,
dishevelled."
they do the same at Royal Ascot now.
Well, they don't as much.
They do.
No, they don't do it to anything like the same really nasty degree that they do at Aintree. But I would support Aintree as a racecourse over any other at any time. Cheltenham, of course, is terrific, but for me, Aintree has something terribly special, and that's probably the Grand National.
Well, it may well be. We may have to take a little venture up there. We shall see.
Indeed.
Lots more to come, including Ask Porky in the next hour. This is TalkSport.
Crazy, but that's how it goes. Millions of people living as ho.
Gary says this: "I've lived in Santiago for 20 years, and you'd be amazed at how the city has developed. Come back soon, Porky." Look, there's a picture of it there.
Yeah.
There's a couple of skyscrapers.
Yeah, no, it's honestly very
there
impressive. On the South American continent, which I'd never been before. I went to Santiago. Amazing city, it really is, and I think the economy's in better shape now than it's ever been. So it's well worth the visit.
Now, Stevie sends you this, and I know what your answer is going to be.
Yeah.
He says, "Porky, as you've never been on a stag party, why not join us at the Grand National for a friend's stag do?"
Well, it's very kind of you, mate.
That sounds quite dangerous.
Very, very dangerous indeed. I mean, what you're combining there is bad behaviour at a stag party with bad behaviour at a day out at the racing.
Yeah.
The combination
and
of the two.
And a collection of, as you put it, northern ladies.
Northern ladies, you'd end up in jail, mate.
Could be quite tricky, that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Phil says, "Of course the train station's on the edge of the track."
What do you mean?
What do you mean, what do I mean?
Well, not every racecourse in this country has got a railway station on the edge of it.
I think he means the railway track.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
TalkSport, we are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. We've got to work out a quiz, by the way, haven't we, for this week? Has you had any thoughts about that yet?
No, I'm still thinking about that one. Don't worry about that.
I had a tweet earlier on, actually. Yeah. I'm not worried about it, by the way, but from Ikram, which was very funny. We didn't get a chance to play it out. We might do it later in the week.
Right.
And it's an old classic clip from old Who Are You? Ian Holloway talking after a game. I'm not quite sure who he was managing, actually. Sort of likening the game to, rather unfortunately, going out on the pull and saying that, it might not be the best one you got to go on with, but we'll take it. I mean, it's quite funny, but we may play it later on in the week.
I've heard him say that.
You've probably seen it in the past.
I have indeed. I think I should mention a tweet here because it involves two of our regular correspondents. Okay, old Lizzie is asking that we wish Becky a happy birthday.
Oh, is it her birthday?
Apparently it is. And so happy birthday, Becky. And that's prompted to us by your friend Lizzie. I know you keep in touch on Twitter.
That would explain why she put out this thing. Because when it's your birthday on Twitter, they give you balloons
that
do they? Float up and down. Do you not get those?
No.
Well, probably because you didn't put your birthday on it.
Oh, no, I don't think it is.
Is your birthday not on there?
Oh, I don't think so.
I'm not sure. You don't think so?
Well, how'd you put it on?
Well, you put it in part of your profile.
I see. Right, no, I didn't.
And you can actually, you'd like it because even though you put the year in, it doesn't actually show the year to anybody else.
I see. Yeah, okay, yeah.
I'll show you how to do it.
Yeah, okay.
But when it's your birthday, these balloons kind of float up and down the screen.
And
she was saying the first time this happened, it was fun, but it's getting a bit much now.
Yeah, it is it? Yeah.
And I actually said to her, well, it didn't work the other day because on David Bowie's birthday, it was David Bowie's birthday, Twitter account.
Yes.
And they had all these balloons going off, which is not really quite the right sentiment.
Not really quite the right sentiment at all. I agree. And is Becky a doctor, in fact?
She is indeed.
She's a medical doctor.
Of the medical profession, yes.
Really? Yeah.
When you say a medical doctor, what do you mean by that?
Well, you could be a doctor of philosophy.
Well, do you remember Dr. Eva
else.
Carnero, and you always said that you didn't believe that she was a doctor?
Yeah. I didn't,
she was a doctor, and she is a doctor, and so is Becky.
What about Dr. Ian Paisley?
Dr. Ian Paisley, I think, was a doctor of something else.
Mr. Parry, you come into the house of God, and I believe you have been on the devil's buttermilk.
Who was the other guy that used to use the phrase? Is it Liam Fox or something like that? Who calls himself Doctor?
He does, That's right, he does, Liam Fox, the former Defence Secretary. He does.
I remember seeing him in a pub once.
Yeah.
You know when he sort of had his fall from grace because he had that rather strange relationship with a guy who he used to take around with him.
He did.
He used to have cards that said, I'm Dr. Liam Fox's bloody...
chief advisor or something.
That's right, He was taking it all over the world.
Yeah, that's right,
Nobody quite worked out how that all went on.
No.
But funny enough, it was after that Christmas party we had in... I think was it Manchester Square? You know the one we had in that nightclub?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Where we all decided it was such a terrible party that a bunch of us left, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, myself and Mark Saggers ended up round the corner in a pub.
Right.
And we went to this pub, and, unbeknownst to us, I turned around, I went and got a drink, turned around, and standing in the corner talking to a couple of people was Liam Fox.
Really?
Yeah. Luckily, he didn't recognise me.
Bit of an experience. Listen, I'll tell you something that might touch upon our respective histories in Fleet Street.
Yes.
The yacht formerly known as Lady Ghislaine.
Yes. The Lady Ghislaine, Robert Maxwell's.
That's the one he fell off.
Yeah.
Or jumped off or whatever.
That's the one he rang me from.
Is that one he rang you from?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. Well, it's for sale. Refurbished super yacht, the Lady Mona Kay, which was the scene of the newspaper tycoon Robert Maxwell's mysterious death, is on the market for $11.8 million.
Wow.
That's not a very big yacht.
It's not, actually.
That is not a very big yacht, $11.8 million.
It's not a huge yacht anyway.
No.
To be honest. I mean, it was very luxurious inside.
Yes.
But it wasn't massive. It wasn't like the size of Roman Abramovich's sort of super yachts.
Or Sir Slimy, as he's known.
Sir Slimy. Yeah, well, you see, in those days, the super yacht didn't really exist.
By the way, I don't mean Comrade Abramovich is Sir Slimy.
No.
It's what about Sir Philip Green?
Philip Green.
Who's known as because he's got one of the biggest yachts on the water.
He's got a new one, hasn't he?
Yeah. It says here, the 57.5 metre vessel, and again, that's not very long, is it?
57 metres?
For a yacht.
Yeah, it is.
Is it? It's 60
metres.
50
feet.
Yeah. Has undergone a major refit since Maxwell's body was found in 1991 floating off the... I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
Why are you laughing?
Floating off the Canary Islands.
Yeah.
He slipped over the side of the Lady Ghislaine, as it was then called.
Yeah, that was the name of his daughter, wasn't it?
I was going to say, in honour of his youngest daughter, Ghislaine. It later emerged that the Mirror Group owner had plundered its pension fund.
That's right.
The boat was sold by administrator in 1992 to a US buyer. The sale comes amid a recovery in the market after a plunge in interest following the Brexit vote.
Whatever happened to his sons, by the way? Do you remember
they retired to the country.
Yeah, but do they still live here in this country, though?
Yeah, Kevin was one of them.
Yeah, it was Kevin Maxwell.
And I can't remember the other guy. But I remember once one of them saying, because we were chasing them for ages,
people used to go and doorstep the house in Oxfordshire, didn't they?
Well, you had to, because all this 400 million quid had gone missing. They still lived in luxury, and everyone know where's the money gone. Yeah. I'm not suggesting for a moment they had any implication whatsoever in criminal actions or deeds, but they were associated to their father because they were his son.
Exactly.
And I remember once, I got chatting to one of them. He was exasperated by all the attention, all that, and they
were actually quite nice, his sons.
They were nice guys, just affected by a ruthless and bullying father who in the end became a crook.
Yeah.
And they had this meeting, and it was in the boardroom or something because they were both sort of directors of the company or something.
Yeah.
And Maxwell made another dramatic announcement, pounding the table with his fist, and then said, I don't know. Where on earth would you lot be if I wasn't here? And he walked out the room, and Kevin Maxwell said, on the French Riviera, Dad, driving around in a Ferrari, because you can well afford one.
Right.
And that's the relationship they had with him, It's amazing.
Very strange. Now, how about this from Kenny? He says, I was in the Falklands conflict op corporate with 45 Commando and shared a brew with Max Hastings on the front line twice.
Wow.
He doesn't offer any view on that.
Yeah.
But he was a good guy, Max Hastings. Still is, I would say.
Yeah, he's still around.
Adam Werrity is Liam Fox's mate.
Who?
Adam Werrity.
Yeah. The guy I was talking about in the Falklands, Bob McGowan.
Yeah.
The Olympic flame that went out.
Yeah.
I mean, that was over. But beforehand, he was a very active reporter. He went to the Falklands and he was terrific, Bob, because he was a really big, guy. He could have been a soldier himself. Yeah. And he got adopted by I think it was the Marines. and one of the lads by the Paras. But he used to tell me he used to go off to these drinking sessions with the Marines, at their base in Lympton, I think it was, down in the West Country. And they'd go on like 3 days. Yeah. And because the guys were so fit and strong, I mean, they never winced, you know, whereas he was always...
Was he not one of the people as well who was involved in a punch-up in the newsroom with somebody? I remember hearing this story.
Well, there were a lot of punch-ups in those days, but it wasn't him. I think it was Ian Black, who was
it wasn't involving him. I know Ian Black was a ghastly character.
Yeah, ghastly, yeah.
Who bizarrely became friends with the Bridges family, Jeff Bridges family.
Yeah, he did,
America, which was quite strange.
And once refused to do a job in California because he said his mate Jeff Bridges' son was not very well, and he was going to the hospital to sit by his bedside all day.
Yeah,
for some bizarre reason. Yeah,
no, but I'm pretty sure I was told a story that Bob McGowan was in London at the time. He must have been attached to the desk in London.
Yeah,
and he and some guy ended up like throwing typewriters at each other one day after lunch.
They could well have done. A lot of that used to go on. Bob eventually retired to Spain. Sadly, died of cancer a few years ago. In fact, most of the people I worked with in Fleet Street have died.
You
have
mentioned that in
Norman
the past.
And Robert, Colin Bell. Very, very sad, just all sort of... And I'm the only survivor, really.
And it's incredible that you, the one who is the most ill, the one who has the most terrible trouble...
That's right.
And was closest to death, and has been to so
many
dangerous places...
It's true.
...are the lone survivor.
Yeah, with only 1/3 of my heart working.
Does that not feed into my theory that actually, indeed, there's nothing wrong with you?
No, what it feeds into the theory is that I was the youngest reporter there, and then I became the youngest news editor. I was such a whiz kid. I just... I got up that greasy pole really, really quickly and got to the top. Everybody else was older than me. That's why they ended up
I wasn't.
Kicking the bucket.
No, is that right?
Well, you were about the same age.
No, I'm not about the same age. I'm quite a lot younger than you, actually.
Kicking the bucket and pegging out, I'm afraid.
Really?
Yeah.
Here's one from somebody calling himself Agony.
Oh, yeah.
He said he's advising people to tune in and listen to us chatting about UFOs. They never surprise me, he says. A friend and I once saw one, he says.
Yeah, but everybody claims to have seen a UFO.
Have you seen a UFO?
Well, how do you know? Because if you see things moving around in the sky, it could be an aeroplane with flashing lights.
Technically, it's an unidentified flying object.
It could be a shooting star. It could be a meteorite. I mean, how do you know?
Well, you can tell what a shooting star looks like because it's a shooting star.
Yes.
And it heads towards the ground.
Yeah.
A UFO tends to be something which doesn't head towards the ground.
Yeah, well...
But it actually flies off in a particular direction.
Well, you... The
most amazing thing I've seen in
the
sky, I think I told you this already, was when I was in Mallorca in the summer.
Yeah.
Before you interrupted my holiday.
Yes.
And we watched this incredible meteor shower.
Yeah.
Where we sat outside in the first villa that we had.
Yeah.
Not the one that you saw.
Yeah.
And I watched this fireball effectively going across the sky.
Right.
It was incredible. What do you mean, right?
No, it's great. It's good news.
It was great.
Yeah.
It's good news.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Well, your fireball across the sky, the meteor shower.
Well, how's it great news?
Well, I mean, I'm
not interested, are you?
I am. I'm pleased for you that you actually saw something that thrilled you. I saw the Aurora Borealis in Iceland. I did.
You saw the Aurora Borealis?
That's right, yeah, in Iceland. From the penthouse of my hotel.
At what time of night was that?
About 2 in the morning.
No way.
It was.
There's nothing you could see at 2 in the morning.
I'm telling you, don't you know what they look like? It's like a fireworks show.
The Northern Lights. I know exactly what it looks like.
Yeah,
There's no way you saw it at 2 in the morning.
I did.
Absolute rubbish.
I did. Don't you try and put me on the spot there, pal. I absolutely did.
Don't you put me on the spot.
Yeah.
Who are you? This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mites. Ask Porky coming up very, very shortly. We've got lots and lots of very good questions on the Facebook page, and which have been tweeted in as well, which we will get to. They cover quite a wide range of subjects.
Yeah.
Some sporty, some not so sporty.
Yeah.
But we will be revealing all pretty soon.
Yes.
So, but we should, as I say, we should come up with some idea for the quiz as well.
Indeed. Yes, absolutely.
Some people have said, why don't we do a history of the World Cup, or perhaps a history of world football? Because you know so little about it.
Well, no. I know plenty about it. I mean, we could do that, if you want.
I don't mind.
Could do. We'll think about it, and we'll decide.
Well,
tomorrow.
The independent quizmasters, because last week we had to use we came up with the idea of doing the Trivial Pursuit game, which was a Beatles one.
Indeed.
But we'll be not using that this week, so we'll have to go back to the independent quizmasters who need a bit of notice.
Well, yeah, we have a bit of a business meeting tomorrow, don't we? So we'll have to get together and sort that out. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we got that. That's only going to take a couple of hours.
Listen, you know this situation regarding Volkswagen?
With the situation regarding their, shall we say, rather dubious activities.
Well, I'm not going to get into that. The point is...
Well, what do you mean you're not getting into it? That's the story, isn't it?
No, I've got, it's a development on that story. I mean, the point is all these people now are sort of getting all upset. They want £3,000 in compensation from a class action being brought by a motorist against Volkswagen and its sister brands, Audi, Skoda and Seat, as a result of the Dieselgate emissions scandal. And this is because they didn't reveal correctly the amount of emissions.
So the person that wants, or the people that want compensation, want compensation for what exactly?
Well, this is the point. Yeah. I'm trying to figure this out. I mean, it wasn't their air that was polluted. It was like
they were polluting
the world's
other people's air.
Yeah, the world's air.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's almost like if you're going to sue people now because there's so many lawyers running around that they're going to make some money for themselves and for you.
Yes.
On the basis they've let you down.
Yeah.
There's going to be an awful lot of lawsuits going on.
Exactly. You see, the thing is, it's claimed that thousands of people around Europe might have died because everybody's driving around in these diesel cars.
Yeah.
But how can you ask for compensation for somebody else's death? I don't quite understand it. Yeah.
Well, exactly. Unless you feel somehow that you're having sleepless nights.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you can find a lawyer that represents you to say, oh, yeah, my client's having sleepless nights because he thinks he might have killed a few people by sending out these horrible emissions.
Exactly. But once again, a lot of people who were driving those cars said, well, it was government advice to drive a diesel car because it was better for the environment.
Yeah.
That was another Gordon Brown trick.
That was a Gordon Brown trick.
Because he said, I'll knock some money off the price of a litre of diesel because it's better to be driving it around.
Yes.
In fact, it's worse.
Well, yeah, but now they've already discovered that. And they get around it by saying, this is why when I used to always have rows with people on various radio programmes, and sometimes with other people apart from just you.
Yeah.
When you'd say, well, why can't you just believe what the politicians are telling you? Yeah. Well, there's a reason for that, because it might be absolute and utter cobblers.
Exactly.
And then when they say they got it wrong, all they then do is go, oh, actually, we've got different advice now, so forget about that. And now what they're going to do is they're going to charge extra money for you to drive a diesel.
That's right.
Extra money for you to pay for the congestion charge. It's an absolute scandal.
But anyway, so I come across this piece in which now the hunt is on for the scientists, right? This is going right back to the Brown era, who came up with the mad theory that diesel was cleaner and healthier because it supposedly helps combat climate change. How could a scientist have got that so wrong?
Well, he couldn't, have he? I mean, the whole point is he must have done it for a reason. He must have either been put up to it by somebody, or it must have suited somebody's agenda for the scientists to say it. In the same way as I was telling you the other day, that some scientific institute in America put out this thing about 2016 was the warmest year on record.
Yes.
And then they showed this graph, which looked as though it had gone from like a point down the bottom left all the way to the top right.
Yeah.
Massive, huge gain.
Exactly.
It was actually 1 degree.
Yeah, exactly.
It got hotter by 1 degree.
By 1 degree.
But the graph made it look like we were all going to die.
But anyway, the scientific journal I've got here said that there is a cabal of scientists who are clearly caught up in, pressure groups and all this kind of stuff. Not only are they responsible for coming out with that as the wrong theory, but they're actually responsible for policies which are now costing the world billions and billions of pounds a year because they're all wrong.
Yeah.
For instance, global climate change, right? Now, a lot of these scientists belong to the global climate change industry. That's actually their job.
Yeah.
Do you know what the size of that industry is? From nothing 30 years ago, that industry is now a behemoth which is valued at $1.5 trillion.
A behemoth? There's nothing like that.
$1.5 trillion. And that's a year. And that is employing people whose sole job is to deal with climate change, okay? I mean...
I know, it's incredible.
It's unbelievable.
And, of course, there's not much point in them saying that, therefore, for some reason... I mean, none of them have come up and said, that's why bits of Hawaii are falling apart.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with climate change.
Now, this was published today because of the scandal in Northern Ireland. It says, consider the latest UK scandal where in Northern Ireland, the Belfast government will cost the British taxpayer more than £1 billion because of a mismanaged renewable heat incentive scheme.
What is the thing why Brighton Martin McGuinness has resigned? We were talking about that yesterday.
Exactly, but we only touched on it. It says for every £100 they spent on eco-friendly energy businesses... they spent on eco-friendly energy... Businesses were then able to claim a £160 rebate.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So they spend 100, they get 160 back from the government. Because no cap was ever placed on the incentive, businesses piled in to take advantage, and enterprising farmers and businessmen were heating vast empty warehouses with nothing in them to claim the subsidy.
Yeah.
And it was all paid for by the taxpayer. The cost of spiralled wildly out of control.
Yesterday. And there's one particular farmer who was getting made £1 million.
Yeah.
For heating a shed.
Yeah, that's right. It's exactly, yeah.
Incredible, isn't it?
It says the problem was that the authorities in Belfast put the word renewable energy on it. And it says anything with the word renewable on it means eye-watering expense and intolerable waste.
Yes.
In Wales last week, an experimental tidal energy project...
experimental tidal energy project
costing £18 million, funded by the EU and the Welsh government.
Marvellous.
Went into administration within months after a sonar to protect seals, porpoises and dolphins completely failed.
Right.
So they had to close it down after spending £18 million on it.
How's that blade getting on up in Hull, by the way?
Oh, that was so funny. So funny.
Has it moved again yet?
No, it hasn't moved, but so many people made reference to that.
Yeah.
How about this, listen? Last October, the National Audit Office stated that Britain's renewable electricity subsidies have now reached, this is to anybody who says, I've got a renewable energy facility, like a little thing on your top of your house, a little windmill or something, will be £8.7 billion within 2 years, OK?
What, so if you put one of these little windmills on the top of your house, you get money?
You get money.
Right. Why haven't you done that?
Well, I haven't got a house as such where I want to put one, you know what I mean? I mean, most of my property is in flats and things. It says this is equivalent to charging everybody else who hasn't got a windmill on their house £110 on your annual bill to pay your neighbour if he's got a windmill on his house.
Well, I mean, the big business up in Hull that they keep banging on about, which is why they brought this turbine blade in, is because it's Siemens up there who have got a contract from the government to make loads of these wind propeller type things to put out in the sea.
Well, what are they called? They're called
wind turbines.
Wind farms. Yeah, wind turbines. Yeah.
Well, that's what it is. That's what it's. Somebody pointed out, not very funnily.
Yeah.
The propeller is so massive. I don't know what size the plane was, but
exactly.
The trouble with all of this stuff is the government. When you often say, and I agree with you that if they spent the money slightly better, I wouldn't object to paying the taxes.
No.
But
I agree.
It's absolutely incredible what they waste money on.
But these mad nutters who have this it's just they are driven by diktat.
Yeah.
It's renewable. It's got to be good.
So they all just tick a box.
They'll tick a box. This one.
The one thing that I actually did see, which I think is truly renewable and truly interesting, was a little local report that I saw, and it's all going on in SE1.
Yeah.
There's some very enterprising guys who are going around to all the coffee shops, right?
Yeah.
Collecting the coffee grounds from the coffee shops, because apparently we throw loads of them out.
Yeah.
Collecting them, taking them to a place somewhere else in SE1, and growing mushrooms in them.
Right.
And the mushrooms are then sold to the restaurants in SE1. So it's actually one, for the first time, completely and utterly, truly renewable.
Well, yeah,
it's
but
not
I mean,
costing any money.
That sounds okay to me, as long as it's not costing anybody anything.
No, I think it's a great idea.
But listen, this is the mad one I've talked about before.
Do you like mushrooms? Do you like mushrooms?
I like mushrooms, yeah. But this is the mad one I've talked about before. Instead of us in this country just burning coal, which we still have an awful lot of, you know, and that's what coal was designed for. That's why history.
I mean, I have to say, when I found one of the houses I moved into, there was a coal bunker with a lot of coal in it.
Yeah.
And I put the coal in the fireplace, and God, was it great. It was so hot.
Yeah, well, exactly. So instead of burning coal, and we have tons of coal left in this country, like thousands of tons of coal.
Yeah, but you have to dig it out of the ground, though.
Of course you do. It says... our biggest power station, Drax, I've told you about this before, has now been converted at huge cost to run partly on wood chips. The wood chips, at huge expense, are shipped over from the US. Those chips, in turn, are cut from hardwood forest in North Carolina and subsidised by the taxpayer in this country to the tune of £500 million a year, in a process that actually increases the carbon emissions from Drax Power Station.
Yeah.
The world has gone completely mad.
Yeah, but you might as well have said the same thing when they started recycling cardboard to China.
Unbelievable.
Because the amount of emissions that it took to put the cardboard onto a boat in Southampton docks and then go all the way around the world to China was absolutely and utterly ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
Now, how about this from Liam? He says, for someone supposedly who has a serious heart condition, Porky doesn't have to go on about alcohol consumption. I think it's a BS, he says.
No, I do it as a warning.
A warning.
People have to understand that, I have a certain image I have to keep up.
What image do you think that is?
Frivolity, enjoying life, a sense of bon vivant.
Bon vivant?
Yeah, and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And in order to...
Have you heard from your mate Ginola lately, by the way?
What?
David?
David?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. What's he up to?
Well, I'll tell you later. Because Ask Porky is coming next. Now, this could only happen at Talk Sport, right?
Yeah.
But in the midst of all of the various slings and arrows of outrageous fortune that we have to deal with...
And the improvements we're making to our output system.
To our output system so that we can reach more people, even though we don't reach that many people with our DAB signal for some stations. I mean, Talk Sport actually does rather better than Talk Radio, but it runs out. Anyway, I'm not going to moan too much, but we haven't got any music to play for Ask Porky.
OK, well,
so
in that
why
case...
don't you just sing it?
I was going to say, there's only one option.
Well, why don't you sing it?
Help! I need somebody's help. Not just anybody's help. I really need somebody's help. When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way. But now those days have changed. I'm not so self-assured. Now I find. I changed my mind. I've opened up the doors.
All right, that'll do.
Help me if you can. I'm feeling down. And I do appreciate you being round.
I'll just go out, shall I?
Help me get my feet back on the ground.
I bet you can't reach the high note.
Won't you please help me? Okay,
yeah. Has anyone got a gun?
That wasn't bad, actually.
That was awful.
That was pretty good.
Absolutely awful.
That's because we haven't got any music,
but it's
so I did it myself.
Music. Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you very much for improvising.
Okay.
Anyway, so now it's time for Ask Porky. I've got a whole series of questions here for you.
Okay, let's go.
I'd like you to be as brief
as
possible.
I'm concentrating, yeah.
I'd like you to be as brief as possible, but as helpful as you can possibly be.
Got a wonky microphone. Keeps springing back into my face.
It's not. Would you mind not playing with it, though? Because you're making everybody's ears go mad. Are you ready for question number one?
Absolutely ready.
It's from Rich on Facebook. Mike, who are you now tipping for FA Cup glory following Everton's departure?
Well, to be honest, I haven't put my mind to it. Do you think I really care? The misery I went through of being extracted from the FA Cup in the first round in a season when I thought we were going to actually launch ourselves upon a serious assault on the Premier League has been too painful to bear, and I haven't thought about it, so I'm sorry, I can't answer that question.
OK, well, let's try this one from Mikey. Porky, I'm investing in a second property this year. Do I wait till post-Brexit?
Well, it is post-Brexit. We've had the vote and Brexit has been voted for. Now, if you wait until the actual political mechanics of it all are put into place and complete, you could be 2 or 3 years down the line, pal. I would get in on the property market right now. My prediction is it will still go up purely on the supply and demand aspect of the availability of property in this country. Get in now.
OK. Here's one from Colin on Facebook. I've got a friend who's mocked me for years for listening to you daily, buying your DVDs and going to your live show. It's now come to light that he's been secretly listening to you the last few months and can't get enough of the show. Do I accept he made a mistake or never ever let him forget that he was a plank for all those years?
Well, you just take a position of superiority now, because what happens is you knew from the start that you would re-educate yourself and have a better feeling within your psychological ambience by listening to the two mics. Now, we are not a guilty secret to anybody. We've got millions of listeners. We've got hundreds of thousands of followers on social networks. So you don't have to actually, hide us in the middle of the Times like we're some sort of soft porn magazine.
What?
We are very high-level communicators, and therefore your mate is the mug and you must take the high moral ground.
OK. How about this one from Alex? He says, Porky and MG, I've got slack. I'm so far behind on the podcast that I'm only up to early December. Should I now just jump forward to where we are now?
No, you must listen to everyone, because only by listening to everyone can you put us together like a quilted blanket that has been knitted and sewed together by a combination of different people. I only realised over the last 24 hours that I'm so far behind on Coronation Street that they're talking about...
Still in black and white.
Well, it's almost still in black and white. They're talking about Halloween, right? When you get that far behind, you tend to lose the plot. You must catch up as quickly as you can. Devote your life to listening to us and exclude other things.
Tom says this, Mike's, I've given up alcohol for January. Any tips to help keep me going?
I've got nothing but contempt for people who give up alcohol in January. You're just a loser, pal. All this social pressure. Oh, well, I had a load over Christmas. Now I've got to give up for January. It's a load of old baloney. Honest to God, it is. If you want to give up, maybe you should do it in November or something like that. But why give up? Just ease off. Just ease off. I haven't had a glass of wine hardly since New Year because I don't want one. So,
what
just
about
ease
our
up.
AGM?
That was a special business meeting. There was an exception.
OK. John says this: Dear Porky, the Mrs. Boss is coming to stay at our house tomorrow night. Should I stay in and pretend to be a good husband, or go out and get bladderated and come home shouting, I'm a sex machine, like I did the last time we had a guest?
It sounds like a very odd arrangement, this, to me. You know, your wife's male boss is coming round and you decide to go out and get bladderated. You might come back and find your your wife's male boss looking a bit shifty, and who knows what might have gone on. I'm not saying you shouldn't trust your wife, but remember the combination of alcohol and power, which presumably this bloke has because he's the boss, you know, can be a very, very powerful stimulant when it comes to the attraction between the sexes.
Which is your favourite horror film, says Steve, starring the film legend Peter Couch.
Peter Couch, yeah. Well, I think old Peter Couchy,
this
Cushing...
goes back to last week's quiz.
Yeah, well, now I can answer that. It's a serious question. It's one called The Devil Rides Out. And Peter Cushing was in that, and he had to stand in a circle with flames burning all around it to keep the devil away as the angel of death came galloping down the corridor and burst through the doors on a big charger of a horse. It's a brilliant film.
Really?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I've
seen it.
Yeah.
It wasn't brilliant. Now,
what was it called again?
Hey?
What was it called?
Peter Couch.
No, the Devil Rides Out. That's it.
Devil Rides Out.
Yeah.
You said it was a Christopher Lee.
No.
You sure?
Yeah, sure. Go on, get on with it.
All right. Next one from Pierre.
Yeah.
Dear Porky, who did the Beatles support, Everton or Liverpool? I've never been able to find this out.
Nobody's ever known, because the most remarkable thing about the Beatles, 4 young men who came from Liverpool, from Merseyside, who actually, I don't think, ever uttered a word about football. The closest I can tell you is that...
it's pretty unusual, that, isn't it?
It's very unusual indeed. Paul McCartney attended the 1968 FA Cup final when Everton sadly lost to West Brom 1-0. That was the Jeff Hassel goal. Other than that, there's not really much indication at all of them having any allegiance with either of the teams in Liverpool.
No, interesting. Mitch says this: Mr. Parry, with most of the populated world to soon play in the World Cup, has Scotland any chance of qualification?
Well, it's a mystery as to why Scotland's ability to produce young players has fallen off so badly over the last 30 years. There used to be youth leagues, I think, in Scotland, and they were the equivalent of sort of non-league football at a high level in this country, and I think you had to leave them when you were 19 or something like that. You used to produce great players, but apparently that system doesn't exist anymore, and of course, funding in Scotland is under enormous strain, simply because so much of the popularity and power in Scottish football is concentrated in one city.
Here's one from Lee on Twitter. He says, I'm just starting to learn Twitter and I'm a big fan. Has Porky any advice for me on how to negotiate the Twitter jungle?
Well, I'm not sure Twitter is a jungle. What I do is I put out messages which I feel are beneficial to the community,
positive,
which help to communicate with people who I'm very grateful to for following me. Excuse me, and in order to express my own views on issues. I don't see it as a jungle. I see it as a very simple exchange of information and opinions and views.
OK. Here's one from Lizzie. It said the first book by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, where Holmes and Watson appear together, is called A Study in Scarlet.
Right.
Where did the two Mikes first appear together?
Blimey. That would have
to... depends on what you mean by together, really, doesn't it?
It'd be 1984, or 1983, probably.
Yeah.
And it would be in... what was our boozer called in those days?
What, in Costello's, you mean?
Costello's, yeah. 1983, Costello's.
We were in the same city and we became friends there.
It's 46th Street, I think, wasn't it?
44th.
We were on 42nd, weren't we? 44th, that's right,
44th.
Yeah. He's 44th, yeah. That would probably be about it, I would think. But, it's been a glorious chapter since then.
Well, it has. But the first time we appeared together on the radio, funnily enough, I think might have been shortly before I came back to Talk Sport, because if you remember, you came on Talk 107 once when you'd come up to Scotland to do a football match. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but I think I also did a piece down here in a studio for you when you were advocating the Scots to sing the national anthem at a football match.
Like that. Something like that. Yeah. But anyway, we can go over and over that. How about this one from Chris? A bit of a philosophical one. Why don't all stadiums have the same size pitch?
Because if you look at the Book of Football Laws, there are maximums and minimums. I think let me get this right. I think the minimum is 90 and the maximum is 120 in length and width. I'm not sure of the figures now. But anyway, the reason it had to be like that was because when football grounds were starting to be built...
But there's minimums and maximums, presumably, isn't there?
I just said that.
Yeah.
You're not listening.
Yeah, I am listening.
You didn't
put it that way. But you didn't put it that way.
I did. I said there's minimums and maximums in the laws of football written in the laws book. But you have to understand that a lot of football clubs started as literally just accessories to other things, like the Hammers was a metalworks, Derby County was just a winter pursuit for the county cricket club. And they were just finding spare bits of land.
Call it the baseball ground.
That's why it's called the baseball ground.
The cricket ground.
And just shut up, will you? That's why they were finding spare bits of ground to play football on. That's why they had... And they didn't regulate the laws until 1863.
Why did they call it the baseball ground then?
Because they used to play baseball there.
Well, I thought you said cricket.
No, yeah, but
well.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yes, because it was a cricket ground. It was more suited to baseball, yeah.
What?
Yes, go on, get on with it. Get on with it.
Jonathan says, the King's School Chester must be very proud of its great servant to the working man.
Yes.
With loads of money-related advice. But enough about Martin Lewis. Have you ever considered being a money-saving expert, or will you always be a money-spending expert?
I'm both. You've got to save a bit for a rainy day. I do believe in that, because our business is a precarious one. But at the same time, I do think that at some stage in your life, you should actually splash out a bit and spend your not ill-gotten gains, but hard-gotten gains. That's why I've decided to buy a new car.
A new car?
Yes.
Well, we can't get into that now.
No, we're going to get into it now.
We'll get into that in a bit. I know why you're buying a new car, because your car has been shown up to be, out of date.
No, it's not.
Out of fashion.
No.
And generally just out there.
No.
And people have been...
Can we get on with it, please? Don't waste time on your own moanings.
In April, my mate and I competed in the Devizes to Westminster canoe race, 125 miles non-stop from Devizes Wharf to Westminster Bridge.
Yeah.
With your sporting knowledge, can you assist with any advice, tips, psychological or physical?
Well, I wouldn't bother doing it. I think it's a waste of time. I think canoeing is one of the most, sort of pointless pursuits in the history of man. Get in a little sort of boat with a hole in the middle and then one paddle and just go, paddle my canoe and all that kind of stuff. Just a load of rubbish. Do you know what I'd do? I'd go on
might be doing it for charity.
Yeah, no, I'd go on a pub crawl for charity and raise money that way. It's much more exciting. I think canoeing is one of the most preposterous pastimes I've come across ever.
OK, Izzy says this, back to the Beatles. Which Beatles song best sums up Everton's season so far? About Nowhere Man.
Well, what about Baby I Can Drive Your Car? Because
Why?
that's what Ronald Koeman said to us when he came to the club, and I still believe he will get it into gear very shortly.
All right. Paul says this, Porky, would you ever consider doing Celebrity Big Brother, Strictly or The Jungle to boost the profile of the two mics?
I don't want to do The Jungle because I can't stand creepy crawlies. I really can't. That would just get me down. If I saw a cockroach or something, I'd die of shock. However, I don't know about the Big Brother things. I suppose it would depend on how much I was offered to do it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Porky says, Martin, if a referee gives a goal but then sees the replay on the big screen showing a foul, can he change his mind?
Well, we haven't got... No, he can't, because this is the whole point. That's
partly why they don't do that anymore,
they're not allowed to show controversial incidents in case it causes a riot in the stadium.
Which is kind of mad, isn't it?
It is mad. What they should do is the fourth official should have access to one screen in which he can see a replay and then communicate with the referee. It's simple as pie, but for some unknown reason they don't do it.
Mark says it's been minus 30 degrees C here in Bulgaria the last few days and my vino stock is worryingly low.
Yeah.
Should I risk a walk to the local shop or should I stay indoors due to the risk of frozen birds falling from the sky?
No, you must get out and get yourself some more booze, man, because the thing is, I've found the most pleasant places sometimes to have taken drink is inside a building where there's a roaring log fire inside. It's absolutely tumbling down with snow outside and frozen. And one place I'm thinking about is the Yankee Clipper up in Connecticut, near Ivor's place in Waterbury. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The Yankee Clipper, I can't say I know.
Yeah.
Daniel says, man of the people, Mike Parry, would you rather receive a knighthood for all the ramblings and gerrymandering you've done in the media, or would you rather volunteer for 3 months in Africa installing fresh, clean, running water for the villagers?
I would prefer the knighthood. Purely because I think that would do more good for the world. If I went off to Africa and started installing clean water pumps, I wouldn't get it right because I'm no good at that sort of thing.
Okay.
However, I've, over the years, donated a tremendous amount of money to Sight Savers to help people restore their sight in Africa.
How's that going?
Well, I lost faith in them because I thought politically they'd restructured themselves to a point where they
wouldn't answer your email.
Exactly.
So now
exactly. They snubbed me, so I'm snubbing them. Not getting any more.
Poor people. Sean says, why is it that steps are called steps outside, but inside they're called stairs?
I haven't got a clue.
Good question.
And I couldn't care less.
What do you mean?
Well, it's a ridiculous question, a
Why?
waste of time. Move on to the next question, because it doesn't alter the world. Why are they called steps and stairs? I don't know. I'm not a dictionary.
OK. Final question. Pete, when Sutton play Chester, who do you support?
Chester.
Why?
Because they're home of my birth. I don't live in Sutton anyway, but I mean, although they're a local team in Stockbroker Belt, you have to remember.
So you're not going to the replay, the FA Cup replay?
No, you'll never get away from your roots. Me and Danny Murphy, right, well-known broadcaster and former great footballer, England international, were brought up a few streets apart in Chester and now live just a couple of miles apart in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey. We have pursued the same path. We have the same values and ideals.
Thank you very much indeed. That was Ask Porky. Sorry about the music at the beginning. Chris adds, just for the end of it, The Devil Rides Out was Christopher Lee. Peter Cushing or Peter Crouch or Couch weren't in it.
He was in Wicker Man, though.
Today you and I are not the same. You say you like the sun, I like the rain. So before we go, do it all.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Porky Vision, of course, coming up tomorrow. Becky says, thanks so much for the birthday shout-out. Means a lot from my favourite radio presenters.
Yes.
And top guys. It's very nice of her.
Yes.
We've got another one here from Sean. Can you wish me a happy 32nd birthday? Trucking through the night listening to the best show on the radio.
Yeah.
And Amanda says, can you say a belated birthday to Daniel Wilson so he can hear it on the podcast, please, Porky?
OK, well, that's happy birthday, Daniel Wilson.
Yeah.
The one before that was?
The one was Sean.
Sean, happy birthday, Sean. And very best wishes to you, my boy.
Ross says this on your rather interesting rendition of Help.
Yes.
Voice of an angel, old fat face is jealous, spelt Jelous. I presume he's a member of the Porky tribe. He can't spell.
Well, who's he saying jealous? You are?
I think so, yeah.
They call you low face there.
No, he called me old fat face.
Yeah, low face is sticking.
But,
I have to
if you
say,
want to insult me, Ross, try and get the spelling right.
I have to say that even though I say it myself, I felt that my rendition of Help, in the absence of us being able to do it technically,
yes,
because of our digital mixing board going sort of AWOL or something.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, exactly. I believe that was one of the best renditions of a Beatles song I've ever given.
Yeah, and you might be right.
And I just want to say to the people...
I especially like the way that you sang two people's sort of harmonies as one man.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was trying to do. And I want to say to everybody out there, that was a moment in history, because they'll be talking about that rendition of Help for years to come. And you listen to it live.
But not for the right reasons. Westy says, I just got home and switched on for the last half hour. I was greeted by Porky cracking wine glasses with that stinging singing.
Yes, that's excellent.
Ian says, Porky, I think you might be beyond help.
Beyond help. That's very good of you. Robbie says, this is a great one, this. Great news, guys. The Adelphi Hotel has vacancies for the Grand National Weekend, taking bookings now.
Yeah, I bet it does. But they won't let you in, though, will they? You get back there after the pubs have shut, and they'll probably say, well, you can't be coming in here with any of those northwestern ladies.
I wouldn't want to get in. That is now, to me, officially the worst hotel I've ever stayed in.
Yeah.
No problem at all.
It is. But you managed to pay them twice, though, didn't you?
Well, we got all that sorted in the end.
Good.
Yeah.
Keith says this, thanks to Porky's screeching, all the cats and foxes are now belting out Beatles hits in the neighbourhood.
Well, and funnily enough, Keith here says, you may have read this one out, right, that's it. We love listening to you guys, but we're contacting the RSPCA as that cat being tortured before Ask Porky must be reported.
Yes, absolutely right. And in fact, Becky says this has been spoiled slightly by Porky's extended version of Help. Painful listening, especially the high note.
I thought the high note was brilliant, actually.
You didn't quite reach the high note.
Quite pleased with myself there. Right, now then...
And Peter says you're getting Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing mixed up. Christopher Lee was in Wicker Man as well.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Not Peter Cushing.
They look very similar, actually.
They don't. They don't.
And they follow the same genre.
I'll tell you who Peter Cushing was in. He was always he was more likely to be Dr. Frankenstein.
Wasn't he Sherlock Holmes as well?
He might have been.
I think he was.
You're not mixing him up with Basil Rathbone. I think
he was. Peter Cushing was.
He was Sherlock Holmes briefly.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
By the way, have you seen the latest Sherlock Holmes with Cumberbatch?
No.
I've got it recorded, so it will feature in Porky Vision tomorrow night.
Do you not have to pay 3,000 quid to download it?
No.
What's the latest? You said there was the latest more news on that.
The Sherlock Holmes convention.
The Sherlock Holmes convention.
Well, you say there is more news?
Well, I thought you said there was.
Well, yeah, there was actually. I can't remember what it was now. I think there's been a bit of a revolt amongst the Sherlock Holmes followers. Now, I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about, because time is short.
There's not a lot of time left. About 10 minutes.
No. There is a matter or two which is worrying me. And that is what the weather's going to be like this weekend, OK?
Well,
Arctic winds of minus 10 degrees set up is one of the headlines in tomorrow morning's newspaper.
Yeah, but how often have we been told that this is happening?
Yes.
And then it never happens.
Well,
it's
I hope it doesn't.
A damp squib.
I hope it doesn't, honestly. Now, listen, let me tell you something, because that leads to another point about whether or not I'm out to stay over in Merseyside at the weekend if it happens. Now, you know, do you know much about... Alan Bennett.
Alan Bennett?
Yeah.
Not particularly loads, no.
What is he sort of famous for? Is he an author?
Well, he's a writer, isn't he? Yeah.
Right, OK, writer and author, OK.
Yeah. Isn't he one who described Hull in some rather less than glamorous terms?
I think he did. But anyway, listen, what I was going to say to you was, he's hit out at people that he has to dine with in hotels that have buffet breakfasts.
Oh, yeah.
He says the behaviour of people is like pigs. They pile their plates too high, they take too much food, they stuff it down their throats because it's allegedly, well, it's to all intents and purposes, it's free, isn't it? Because if it comes bed and breakfast with buffet breakfast, you try, and he's even seen people wrapping it up in napkins, putting it in their pockets and taking it away, sausages and that sort of stuff.
Well, there is something about giving people free, what they perceive to be free food. They don't know when to stop. There's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
Isn't it, don't you think?
I do. You're right. He's called a playwright and author, and he says the greed at breakfast in hotels is dispiriting. One young woman this morning with such a passion for fruit that she piles a plate with it, melon, pineapple, grapes, kiwi fruit, then she fills her pockets with tangerines to the extent that in the process nature itself is demeaned.
Yeah.
It's hard to be a waitress. I feel sorry for those waitresses at breakfast watching the pig-like behaviour of these people. Some of the well-to-do guests can't wait to get the food back from the breakfast bar for their table. One young man downing a tumbler of orange en route, and a boy stuffing himself with sausages off his plate before he even sat down.
Well, why doesn't he just not go there for breakfast?
Well, I mean, there's very few hotels you can go to these days which don't do buffet breakfast, isn't it?
Well, you can have breakfast in bed, though.
Hey?
You can have breakfast in bed or have it served in your own room.
Do you know what? I've gone off that over the years. I used to do that all the time when I was travelling because it was easier to, you know, if you had phones to use and all that kind of stuff for mobiles and all that. I always used to have it sent up to the room. But
Did I ever tell you about my amazing breakfast I had in the Four Seasons in Canary Wharf once? This was when
go on.
I was working in Scotland, but I'd come down for a meeting at the Mirror.
Yes.
And in those days, before Sly Bailey came in and rifled loads of money out of the company.
And then stopped you staying in a decent hotel.
And stopped us staying there, And we used to stay at the Four Seasons, which is a fantastic hotel.
Yeah.
Beautiful views over the river and all that. And I once got home so bladderated that I actually ordered about 5 different breakfasts.
Right.
And when it came in the morning, the door was knocked at about 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And this guy pushes the trolley in. And then another guy came behind him. And there was another guy. There was 3 people. Because I'd ordered...
how did you order 3 separate breakfasts?
I somehow managed to order...
one downstairs, one on the phone, one in advance.
No, I'd filled it out on the card.
Yeah.
But I must have not been able to make up my mind. So I had kippers.
Right.
I had a full English breakfast.
Right.
I had some muesli. I had some pastries. I had some toast, I had some tea, some coffee.
See, that is a tremendous waste.
So much of it.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think I ate most of it, to be honest, because I was so hungry.
First time I ever had a waiter arrive with a trolley was at the Copley Plaza in Boston.
Right.
Because that's the old traditional hotel in Boston. You wouldn't use it these days, to be honest. It's a bit like the Adelphi in Liverpool. You know what I mean?
Up.
Yeah, but in those days it was still a prime hotel. But there's lots of really lovely hotels in Boston now. But so anyway, I did the old American thing and had the pancakes with blueberries.
Oh, see, I never liked pancakes for breakfast.
And syrup.
Bacon with it as well.
And syrup and bacon. That's
bacon.
Right. Yeah. But
I never thought that went together.
But you see, I did a bit like you. I thought I might not like this, so I better order some hash browns.
Yeah.
And a bit of sausage and all that kind of stuff. No. And
so you over-ordered, really?
Over-ordered. Yeah. And when it turned up, I couldn't believe it. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed that this bloke was... I mean, it was like wheeling in a patient in a hospital on a trolley.
Right.
It was that huge, you know what I mean? And 2 things you hadn't considered. 1, you'd ordered so many dishes, but B, you forget sometimes how big American portions of food are.
Yeah.
They're twice what you get in Europe.
Yeah.
And that's why Americans are twice the size of people in Europe.
Well, they used to be, not so much anymore.
Well, you still see an awful lot of blubber.
I was in Borough Market, right?
Right.
Having a little shop around. My daughter was there. We were at various stalls. We went and we came by the fish stall, which is where I go quite a lot to buy bits and pieces of fish. And the guy came out and said, "Excuse me." He said, "Do you like crab?" And I said, yeah, I quite like crab.
Yes.
But I've already bought a load of food that I'm going to cook for tonight.
Yes.
Because I was making a new dish, actually. I was making a sausage ragu.
Okay.
Which turned out very well.
Yes.
As you might have seen on Twitter. Anyway, he said, we've got some of this crab meat here, but you've got to eat it by tonight or else it's going to go off.
Right.
And it was 2 huge kind of tubs of crab meat.
Sorry, was he giving this away or selling it you cheap?
He was giving it.
Why was he giving it to you?
Because he said, we can't, we're about to close up. It was about 5:30.
Okay, fair enough.
He said, do you want to take it?
Yeah.
And I didn't want it, but I said to my daughter, I said, well, do you want it? And she said, yeah, well, she was going off to meet a friend of hers. I said, well, why don't you take it over there?
Yeah.
And he gave us 2 big tubs of beautiful, fresh
And what would you eat that
meat.
with, then?
Well, you could have it into as a salad. You could put it on. You could make a sandwich out of it.
Sandwich, yeah.
You could have, you could put it on an avocado, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of things you could have done with it.
Or with a bit of lettuce.
A bit of lettuce, if you wanted. And I mean, it's very, very nice. However, the problem was I didn't want it, and I didn't want to take it home. We ended up, before we departed, I said, well, I'm going to go to the pub for a quick pint. Yeah. She didn't want to drink because she's done a bit dry January. Right? So do you know what I did with it? I ended up giving it to the barmaid. I said to the barmaid,
what, you went into a pub?
Yeah, we went into a pub because I wanted a pint, right? So
Which
I said to her, the Market Porter.
Oh, okay.
And I went in there, and they kind of know me, and they said, I said, I know this is going to sound a bit weird. I said, but would you like some crab meat?
Yeah.
And they went, yeah. And we said, look, it's from the fish place over there. Oh, yeah, we know those guys. Sometimes they give us stuff.
Yeah.
So hopefully somebody ate it at the pub.
What a convoluted way to get rid of a bit of food.
Well, otherwise they would have thrown it out.
Well, you should have said, no, I don't want it. And then they'd have given it to somebody else on the street, wouldn't they?
Well, I thought she wanted it, but she then said she didn't. You know, what women are like. At one point she wanted it, then she didn't. Anyway, we're nearly out of time. This is Talk Sport.
Help! I need somebody's help. Not just anybody's help. I really need somebody's help. When I was young, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way. But now those days have changed. I'm not so self-assured. Now I find, I've changed my mind. I've opened up the doors.
All right, that'll do.
Help me if you can. I'm feeling down. And I do appreciate you being round.
I'll just go out, shall I?
Help me get my feet back on the ground.
I bet you can't reach the high note.
Won't you please?